The dark-haired man asks the fox-eared blonde man what he would like to call him.
Looking up from the roses, the fox-eared man addresses the dark-haired man as his young master.
The fox-eared man tentatively calls him brother, earning a gentle hug and a word of praise.
The scene transitions to the towering modern glass headquarters of the CG game company Skyscraper.
A professional camera crew conducts a themed photo shoot featuring the fox-eared blonde man.
The photography staff praises Zhao Sui's performance and directs him to pose for another camera shot.
The director expresses satisfaction with the session and concludes the shoot, thanking Zhao Sui for his effort. Zhao Sui smiles warmly and begins to thank the entire crew for their hard work today.
A disgruntled staff member watches Zhao Sui walk away and mutters about being extremely unlucky. The crew members gossip about Zhao Sui's blacklisted status and accuse him of seducing a director.
Staff members mock Zhao Sui's lineage as an illegitimate child while fearing discovery by Mr. Liang.
The workers laugh, cruelly questioning if Mr. Liang actually views someone like Zhao Sui as a brother.
A memory recalls the cold introduction of the dark-haired man as Zhao Sui's new older brother. Young Zhao Sui attempts a friendly greeting, but the dark-haired boy immediately and harshly rejects him. The dark-haired boy expresses his deep disgust, leaving the young Zhao Sui looking dejected and alone.
Zhao Sui regrets his past naivete and questions if he was ever worthy of being a brother.
Zhao Sui resolves not to let the insults of petty workers affect his sense of personal pride.
Zhao Sui interrupts the gossiping staff, sarcastically commenting on how well they seem to know his history.
A manager arrives to reprimand the staff for their slander and demands they apologize to Zhao Sui.
Zhao Sui mockingly praises the company's management and notes that Mr. Liang personally insisted on his employment.
Zhao Sui suggests finding a replacement for the shoot, but the manager admits they cannot challenge Mr. Liang.
Zhao Sui highlights the difficulty of the situation, refusing to cooperate with those who openly slander him.
The manager's face contorts in a bead of sweat as he realizes the star is truly offended.
To appease Zhao Sui, the manager fires the offending staff member and orders their immediate resignation.
The manager takes responsibility for his subordinates and leads Zhao Sui toward the demo room for filming.
Zhao Sui offers a knowing, triumphant smile as he follows the manager toward the next stage.
A cheerful chibi Zhao Sui, surrounded by small foxes, agrees to proceed with the game demo.
The scene shifts to a high-tech room filled with futuristic pods and glowing blue digital interfaces.
The staff prepares Zhao Sui for the demo, but he pauses to ask a specific personal question.
Zhao Sui inquires about Mr. Liang's presence, only to learn the man is too busy to attend.
Zhao Sui concludes that Mr. Liang is intentionally avoiding him despite providing him with this career opportunity. Confused by the mixed signals, Zhao Sui prepares for the demo, expecting they won't meet again soon.
The virtual world initializes with a system notification, leaving Zhao Sui wondering who is currently speaking.
Zhao Sui finds himself fully immersed in the game world, surprised by the speed of the transition. A confused chibi version of Zhao Sui stares at a strange round goose inside the game.
The scene shifts to a small fox scurrying through the streets of the digital environment.
Zhao Sui worries his reputation will suffer as local inhabitants rush to take his picture in-game.
Zhao Sui flees from the persistent crowd, shouting that they have mistaken him for someone else. Zhao Sui ducks behind a large trash bin while enthusiastic fans call out for their big brother.
The small chibi Zhao Sui catches his breath, relieved to have escaped the chasing mob for now.
A system window displays Zhao Sui's in-game profile, identifying him as a 21-year-old Fox celebrity.
Zhao Sui reads his character description, noting its similarities to his actual life and his average skills. Zhao Sui feels personally insulted by the accuracy of the system's blunt assessment of his actual talents.
Though hoping for a fresh start, Zhao Sui hears local inhabitants repeating the same slanderous rumors. Zhao Sui recalls being drugged and framed by a powerful man he would never choose to seduce.
Zhao Sui reflects on the fact that he is already surrounded by much more attractive potential partners.
Zhao Sui realizes that if he were to seduce anyone, it would be someone like Mr. Liang.
Zhao Sui becomes incredibly embarrassed by his own intrusive thoughts and tries to clear his mind.
A system notification about upcoming maintenance prevents Zhao Sui from progressing further in the main storyline today.
Zhao Sui plans to wander around for a while before logging out of the digital city. System windows explain that Cross-Time Lovers is a holographic game featuring anthropomorphic characters in a digital world.
The game settings specify that characters possess animal traits and are unable to become fully human.
As a fox with a low divergence value, Zhao Sui accepts a pink flower from a cat.
An otter-rabbit bartender with a high divergence value invites the fox guest into his shop.
Fearing the muscular rabbit, Zhao Sui claims he has something to do and tries to leave. The muscular rabbit bartender drags the fox back inside, noting he saw him wandering for quite a while.
The bartender explains that Zhao Sui is the first customer and provides a special drink on the house.
The bartender asks why the guest isn't drinking, while a sweating Zhao Sui reluctantly agrees to start.
Zhao Sui stares at the clear liquid, detecting the sharp and overwhelming pungent aroma of alcohol.
In a memory, Liang Ye catches Zhao Sui and questions if he was actually drinking alcohol.
Liang Ye calls Zhao Sui a naughty child who needs punishment, ignoring his plea not to touch.
Waking from his daydream, Zhao Sui is startled as the bartender addresses him once again as a guest. Zhao Sui hangs his head, resolving to move past his one-sided feelings for Liang Ye while in-game. He justifies the drink, reasoning that since it is a game, he isn't truly drinking anything. But chibi Zhao Sui chugs the glass, earning a compliment for his impressive ability to drink alcohol.
Zhao Sui begins to cough violently and collapses, realizing that he is not doing very well.
Zhao Sui snaps awake in a dark room, his fox ears twitching at the sudden movement around him. Staring at the empty bar at night, Zhao Sui asks himself what is currently going on in-game. Zhao Sui realizes it is nighttime as a system notice orders all players to exit for maintenance.
Zhao Sui attempts to log out, but the system calls the command invalid and rejects his request.
Checking the time, Zhao Sui recalls it was the 18th, but the screen now says the 19th.
A sudden red error screen flashes before Zhao Sui, catching the fox-eared man completely off guard.
Zhao Sui stands alone in a digital void as countless red error windows surround and glitch around him.
A system countdown appears, and Zhao Sui panics at the thought of actually dying inside the game.
The system warns that the world is shutting down in 60 days, leaving Zhao Sui fearing for his life. Determined to find an exit, Zhao Sui resolves to think carefully and find another way out alive.
A flashback depicts staff explaining that clearing the game trial is the only way to exit automatically.
A close-up of Zhao Sui's lips shows him thoughtfully considering his next steps to survive the shutdown.
Zhao Sui suddenly remembers a critical detail about the game mechanics that could lead to his escape. A system prompt appears, asking Zhao Sui to confirm his entry into the game to begin the trial. The main quest is revealed. Zhao Sui must raise a chosen target character's affection level to 100%.
Zhao Sui thinks the task sounds easy as he observes a character model standing nearby with a smile. 3 potential romantic interests appear, each displaying a heart icon with a 0% affection rating.
Fearing death in the game, Zhao Sui resolves to choose his target character very wisely this time.
Zhao Sui prepares to click an interface button to view the detailed character information for his potential partners.
The first profile is Man Wen, a 20-year-old Samoyed celebrity who has been a fan since debut.
Zhao Sui notes that Man Wen already seems to like him, making the Samoyed a good romantic choice.
The second profile introduces Kans, a 26-year-old elite lawyer who often works for a rival company.
The third profile shows Demingwen, an Indo-Chinese tiger professor who previously failed Zhao Sui in class.
A dazed Zhao Sui is overwhelmed by the perfect faces and varied backstories of all the models.
A final profile describes a CEO character who is a senior the player once loved at first sight.
Zhao Sui looks to the side, preparing to view the final and most mysterious character model's full details.
The model is revealed to be Qin Ye, a 24-year-old CEO who looks exactly like Liang Ye.
Zhao Sui is shocked by the resemblance, and the system asks if he chooses Qin Ye as target.
Staring into the model's eyes, Zhao Sui confirms that the likeness to Liang Ye is truly uncanny.
Zhao Sui recalls that the real Liang Ye never looked at him with such intense golden eyes before.
He wonders if the model was based on Liang Ye's face and if the man would agree.
Looking at the model's face, Zhao Sui feels as though he would be having a romance with his brother.
Zhao Sui chooses the model, imagining an intimate scenario where he sits in his brother's lap.
Zhao Sui contemplates choosing the familiar model as his target while a system prompt asks for confirmation.
Zhao Sui emphatically selects no on the interface, refusing to choose the model resembling his brother. A chibi Zhao Sui runs away as a red X appears over a character model, signaling rejection. The fox-eared man refuses the choice because the model is not really Liang Ye, despite looking similar.
Recalling a past rejection, the fox-eared man resolves not to repeat the same painful experience in-game.
The fox-eared man makes his final decision and chooses the Samoyed celebrity character Man Wen instead. Chibi Man Wen happily hugs the fox-eared man from behind, calling him senior while pink flowers fall.
A system window explains that other potential romantic interests will now automatically become background characters.
The virtual world fragments and glitches as the game world officially initializes the trial for Zhao Sui. A system note warns that the target character's affection level cannot be allowed to turn negative. In a dark void, Zhao Sui feels a cold sensation as something large wraps tightly around him.
Waking startled, the fox-eared man finds himself pinned to a bed by massive dark snake coils. The fox-eared man realizes he's being constricted by a snake and struggles against the pressure.
A shirtless man looms over the fox-eared man and asks if he is currently awake.
The fox-eared man is confused, wondering why he is with this man instead of Man Wen.
A floating book asks the fox-eared man if he would like to view a summary of events.
Complaining about the delay, the fox-eared man learns that Qin Ye was his middle school crush.
A text box explains that Zhao Sui used family influence to force Qin Yi into an engagement. Seeing Qin Yi liked another, the in-game character planned a forced encounter to keep him.
Chibi Zhao Sui is appalled and wonders if this unavoidable, melodramatic plotline is truly necessary for progression.
Zhao Sui notes that the affection meter above the man is currently hidden or displayed as unknown. Qin Ye pins the fox-eared man down and asks exactly what he is looking at so intently.
The fox-eared man recalls the script said Qin Ye would break the engagement if not chosen.
Zhao Sui waits for a reaction, hoping the expected breakup will finally happen according to the plot.
Qinye stares back silently, surrounded by question marks, seemingly confused by his partner's sudden hesitant behavior.
The fox-eared man considers if he must be the one to initiate this part of the plot. He gathers his courage and prepares to bring up the topic of ending their forced engagement. Zhao Sui asks who wants to break the engagement, surprising the shirtless man with his sudden assertiveness. The fox-eared man waits for a response, his face showing a mixture of anxiety and quiet determination. The dark-haired man reminds Zhao Sui of his past claims of love and his desire to marry.
Flustered, the fox-eared man demands that the man stop touching him with his tail. The dark-haired man ignores the plea and leans in further, asking exactly where he shouldn't be touching. Chibi Zhao Sui is shocked by the man's shamelessness and questions how he can speak so confidently.
Chibi Qinye ignores the protest and continues to coil himself tightly around the disgruntled fox-eared man.
The fox-eared man commands the man to let go of him and manages to flee the room.
A voice from within calls him heartless as the fox-eared man flees from the awkward situation.
Qinye smiles knowingly while checking the bite marks on his hand from the previous fierce struggle.
The dark-haired man tells himself they will meet again soon, his expression filled with calculating amusement.
A Chibi Zhao Sui stomps away from the building, wondering why Qinye is not following the plot.
Zhao Sui resolves to ignore the others and focus entirely on increasing Man Wen's affection levels now. A system notification alerts the fox-eared man that a new plot point has been unlocked at the company. The fox-eared man looks at a beginner's gift pack interface showing high probabilities for rare items.
The colorful wheel spins rapidly and Zhao Sui eagerly waits to see what helpful reward he receives.
Chibi Zhao Sui is disappointed to receive a common R card which provides only publicly available information.
Using the card, Zhao Sui finds it useless and complains about wasting time in the empty hallway.
The fox-eared man reminds himself to hurry and advance the plot to reach maximum favorability with Man Wen.
Qinye watches Zhao Sui from the balcony as his affection meter unexpectedly jumps from unknown to 80. Qinye's favorability reaches 100% as he notes that everything is still the same as before.
Qinye swirls a drink in his glass, his eyes fixed on the path where Zhao Sui left. In a flashback, Lian Ye warns Zhao Sui that walking out the door today means a final end.
Qinye orders Zhao Sui to stay away forever, leaving the fox-eared man visibly devastated and confused.
Qinye firmly grips Zhao Sui's face, warning him to never make such insensitive jokes again.
Commanding him to be more obedient, Qinye releases his grip and tells him to follow. Zhao Sui reluctantly agrees while Qinye looks down at him with a cold, triumphant smile. Zhao Sui walks away, vowing to never cross paths with the man ever again in the future.
The distance between them grows as Zhao Sui flees, leaving the dark-haired CEO standing completely alone.
Qinye watches him go, his silent expression suggesting that this separation is far from permanent. Haunted by visions of chains, Qinye muses that his target was never truly an obedient child.
Amidst the pouring rain, Qinye forcefully restrains Zhao Sui, claiming he will never learn to yield.
Qinye remains cold while his assistant discusses public opinion and a new game endorsement for Zhao Sui.
As a glitch traps Zhao Sui in-game, Qinye's golden eye reflects his hidden reptilian nature.
Qinye laughs darkly, vowing to prevent Zhao Sui from dating anyone else, even within the game. The scene shifts to the towering glass skyscrapers of the corporate district on a bright day. The modern building entrance stands ready for the day's business with its sleek, automated security gates.
Startled by a sudden commotion, Zhao Sui wonders what kind of noise is echoing through the lobby.
A distraught Budgerigar agent tearfully explains he was delayed, leaving Zhao Sui confused by the script change.
Fans gossip excitedly as Zhao Sui asks his agent about the upcoming schedule for the current day.
Sensing an arrival, Zhao Sui turns his footsteps approach, wondering if his target has finally appeared. The fox-eared man pauses mid-turn, his anticipation growing as he waits to see who is arriving. Zhao Sui is shocked to see Qinye, looking impeccable in a suit, walking toward him.
His agent frantically warns him not to pester or provoke President Qin after their previous unpleasant history together.
Qinye suddenly appears behind Zhao Sui, asking with a menacing smile who he should not provoke. Claiming his territory, Qinye possessively wraps an arm around the startled fox-eared man's waist.
Ignoring Zhao Sui's demands to be released, Qinye announces that they will all stay together. The bewildered agent and a frustrated Zhao Sui both struggle to understand the current plot developments. A shot of the grand office staircase captures someone asking about the day's specific shooting schedule.
After Zhao Jue dismisses him, the agent reveals they have a two-person advertisement shoot planned next. Qinye's golden eyes narrow as he immediately demands to know who the co-star will be. Winking playfully, the agent assures them that the co-star is someone they already know very well.
A promotional poster reveals the co-star's Man Wen, the public's beloved Smile Angel celebrity.
A sudden crash interrupts the moment, prompting a warning to watch out as something falls nearby.
Qinye's eyes glow with power as a glitch prevents him from reaching the falling man.
Qinye lunges forward as shards fly, but his hands fail to catch the falling Zhao Sui.
Qinye stares intensely at the scene, frustrated by his inability to intervene in the accident.
Man Wen suddenly appears and catches Zhao Sui, urging his senior to be much more careful.
Zhao Sui finds himself in Man Wen's arms, complaining that the script's entrance was unnecessarily dangerous.
Qin Ye's hand reaches out from behind, gripping Zhao Sui's collar to pull him away immediately.
Carrying a tiny Zhao Sui, a furious Qin Ye stomps away while the agent trembles in fear.
Man Wen politely greets the CEO, who remains silent while holding the small fox-like Zhao Sui.
An assistant reminds President Chen of a meeting, and the CEO coldly acknowledges before departing.
Patting Zhao Sui's head, Qin Ye promises to return and pick him up once the shoot ends.
The CEO walks away with his stuff, leaving the two celebrities alone in the wide lobby.
Qin Ye casts a lingering, possessive glance back at Zhao Sui before finally heading into his meeting.
Feeling the CEO's hostility, a chibi Man Wen worries that he has already been deeply disliked.
Man Wen's white boots click against the floor as he approaches Zhao Sui with newfound determination.
Man Wen holds Zhao Sui's hands tightly, beaming with joy over finally meeting his beloved senior.
Zhao Sui finds the adoring Samoyed celebrity incredibly cute as Man Wen clings to him affectionately.
Man Wen humbly asks not to be called senior, claiming he is just a minor celebrity.
Gripping his hands, Man Wen confesses that Zhao Sui is the person he admires the most. As Man Wen's affection rises to 2%, Zhao Sui wonders why his heart is racing.
Man Wen looks surprised as he notes that his affinity level with Zhao Sui is already at 25%.
Chibi Man Wen celebrates his choice and urges Zhao Sui to finish their commercial shooting quickly.
Qin Ye stands in a hallway, looking down at his hand, which is still bleeding from the previous struggle.
The assistant notices the injury, but Qin Ye dismisses the offer of a bandage despite the pain.
From the balcony, Qin Ye watches Man Wen and Zhao Sui holding hands in the lobby below.
A close-up reveals Qin Ye's intense gaze as he silently observes the two celebrities from a distance.
Qin Ye mentally critiques Man Wen, calling him stupid and useless compared to his own status and fame.
Qin Ye's hand remains painful as he watches the pair interact, his frustration evident in his silent stare.
The assistant remarks on how well the two match, further irritating the dark-haired CEO watching from above.
Qin Ye gives his assistant a terrifying death stare, causing the man to tremble with a sudden chill.
Walking away, Qin Ye mutters about poor taste while the assistant remains behind in the empty hallway.
The scene shifts to an ornate photography studio filled with lighting equipment and a professional filming crew.
Dressed by assistants, Chibi Zhao Sui feels relief that his engagement with Qin Ye is still a secret.
Zhao Sui appears in his full costume, a beautiful white robe that leaves his chest partially exposed.
Chibi Zhao Sui feels flustered by the revealing outfit and questions if such clothing is truly necessary.
Man Wen enters in his own costume, complimenting his senior on how well the revealing attire suits him.
A staff member informs the two celebrities that they should follow him to begin the shooting.
The director explains the commercial concept for a perfume called A God Tempted into Longing by Desire.
The director assigns Man Wen to play the god while Zhao Sui must attempt to tempt him.
Chibi Zhao Sui is stunned and confused by the instruction to be the one doing the tempting.
Technical teams perform final checks on the photography and lighting as the shoot is ready to begin.
Zhao Sui worries about his ability to play a seductive role alongside his white-haired co-star.
Man Wen notices his senior's hesitation and asks if he is feeling embarrassed about the intimate scene. Taking Zhao Sui's hand, Man Wen offers to teach him how to properly handle the seductive performance.
Man Wen pulls Zhao Sui into a close embrace, telling him to remember the lesson very well.
Zhao Sui tries to steady his nerves, reminding himself that Man Wen is just a professional co-star.
He reflects on whether he was acting naturally during a previous intimate moment within the game. In a flashback, Zhao Sui clings to Qin Ye, claiming he is scared and seeking the man's comfort. The memory concludes with Zhao Sui asking if he can sleep with the dark-haired man that night.
Back on set, Chibi Man Wen apologizes profusely, worrying that he has somehow made his senior angry.
Zhao Sui grabs Man Wen's clothes and delivers a line, begging him not to leave just yet.
Zhao Sui gazes at Man Wen and offers him the best of everything he has during their performance. Leaning in close, Zhao Sui promises his purest and fullest love to the adoring white-haired celebrity.
Man Wen suddenly leans into Zhao Sui's neck, noticing a scent that feels strangely and intensely familiar.
The scent triggers a memory of Qin Ye, causing a dark realization to wash over the white-haired man.
Pushing Zhao Sui away, Man Wen reacts with a sudden, sharp rejection that shocks the fox-eared man.
Man Wen requests a 10-minute break while Zhao Sui notices the affinity points have suddenly dropped.
Zhao Sui asks what happened, but Man Wen remains silent and keeps his back turned away.
Looking dejected, Man Wen turns away from his senior, described as being like a lost dog. Man Wen asks if Zhao Sui still likes Qin Ye, surprising the fox-eared man with the sudden question.
Man Wen demands to know how he is worse than Qin Ye while gripping Zhao Sui's shoulders tightly. With a trembling hand, Man Wen tells Zhao Sui to stop liking the other man from now on. Man Wen orders Zhao Sui to focus only on him, causing the fox-eared man's heart to race uncontrollably.
Man Wen lifts Zhao Sui's chin, maintaining intense eye contact during the emotionally charged moment.
Zhao Sui is surprised to see that the affinity points have suddenly returned to their previous level.
The director calls for a pose change as the crew prepares for the next group of shots. Camera clicks capture the two celebrities as they maintain their close proximity for the perfume advertisement.
A close-up highlights Man Wen's mouth as he continues to deliver his intense, possessive lines. Zhao Sui stares back with wide eyes, looking flustered by the intensity of the white-haired man.
Zhao Sui points out that Man Wen has gotten his lines wrong during the commercial's performance.
Man Wen's eyes narrow with an intense, focused gaze as the filming session continues.
Holding hands tightly, Man Wen vows to provide his purest and most complete devotion.
The fox-eared man looks on with wide eyes, wondering if he is truly being loved.
As the actors embrace, Chin-ye reviews the footage while his assistant discusses director feedback.
Staring at the screen, a menacing Chin-ye questions the inclusion of an unscripted scene.
The director calls a wrap, thanking the stars as fans gather for photos and autographs.
Man Wen looks away, noting to himself that their affinity has already reached 30%.
The fox-eared man stands alone, touching his neck while lost in his own quiet thoughts.
Chibi Zhao Sui plans to slip away while everyone else is distracted by the white-haired star.
A system notification celebrates a new achievement as their favorability level officially reaches 30%.
Choosing to increase favorability, Chibi Zhao Sui confirms the acceptance of Man Wen's exclusive mission.
A small white creature looks completely shocked while addressing the fox-eared man as his senior.
Man Wen suggests dinner, while Zhao Sui hopes the CO didn't witness their recent interaction.
The agent mentions an upcoming travel dating show, surprising a chibi Man Wen with the news. Man Wen asks to start the show now, and Zhao Sui confirms he just selected it. Man Wen beams with a radiant smile, clearly delighted by the prospect of more time together.
Struggling with his elaborate costume in the dressing room, Zhao Sui feels overwhelmed by the accessories.
Zhao Sui turns toward the door, asking if the dark-haired CEO has finally finished his meeting.
Noticing the heavy footsteps, Zhao Sui worries that the approaching man seems to be extremely angry.
Gripping Zhao Sui's chin, a jealous Chin-ye demands to know if the co-star kissed him.
Zhao Sui tries to explain it was only a minor moment, but Chin-ye's gaze remains sharp.
The fox-eared man reflects on how the CEO's questioning tone feels uncomfortably familiar and intense.
Chin-ye critiques the script's kiss while a Chibi Zhao Sui argues it was only a cheap.
Chin-ye calls the act too easy, prompting Zhao Sui to jokingly tell him to try.
Feeling flustered, the fox-eared man reminds the CEO that they are not currently filming together.
Chibi Chin-ye insists on practicing together, asking if Zhao Sui needs a specific partner for scenes.
Claiming a good actor handles anything, Chin-ye kisses his cheek and asks if it's enough.
Lifting him up, Chin-ye asks if he is still distracted while Zhao Sui protests the contact.
Chin-ye detects the co-star scent on him, describing the lingering smell as completely disgusting.
Confused, Zhao asks what scent he means and offers to let him smell it closer.
Chin-ye pens him down as Zhao Sui weakly tries to refuse the man's sudden advances.
Zhao Sui pleads for him not to bite, fearing the physical mark it will leave behind.
Chin-ye insists on the mark while Man Wen watches the intimate scene through the door.
The cat-eared assistant asks Man Wen why he is hesitating to enter the dressing room.
Man Wen decides to use a different room, smiling while his assistant looks on in confusion.
Shivering, Zhao Sui notes a cold, snake-like sensation while wondering about the scent they mentioned.
A ghostly reptilian hand brushes against Zhao Sui's chest, signifying the CEO's hidden non-human nature.
Chibi Zhao Sui retaliates against the biting as an assistant announces the meeting has been postponed.
Zhao Sui tries to usher him out, mentioning that someone is waiting to speak with him.
Chin-ye possessively declares that Zhao Sui's body is now covered entirely in his own scent.
Chibi Zhao Sui reacts with embarrassment and anger while the CEO simply laughs at his frustration.
The assistant acknowledges the order to delay the meeting while the door remains firmly closed.
Juggling keys, Chin-ye offers a ride home as Zhao Sui wonders why he's so persistent. Arriving at the estate, Zhao Sui realizes this location triggers the plot to cancel his engagement.
Entering the mansion, Zhao Sui faces a relative's angry lecture about his irresponsible behavior and brother.
A blonde woman warns him not to call her mother while Zhao Sui offers a quiet apology.
Social gossip questions his status and validity within the family as the outsiders watch the scene. Internal thoughts mock his worthiness compared to the oldest master while a relative tells him to leave. Zhao Sui smiles bitterly, thinking that the game's cruelty is no different from his actual reality.
The fox-eared man repeats his observation, marveling at how perfectly the game mimics real-life struggles.
A firm knock echoes through the hallway, signaling the arrival of a significant visitor.
Chibi Zhao Sui feels awkward seeing the warm welcome Chin-ye receives from his father.
In the lavish living room, Chin-ye explains he is only there to escort his partner out.
The dark-haired CEO wears a puzzled expression, questioning the tension hanging heavily in the air.
Chin-ye playfully rejects the idea of divorce, leaving the fox-eared man suspicious of his motives.
Stunned by the unexpected refusal, the fox-eared man stares in disbelief at the smirking CEO.
Seeking a way out, the fox-eared man commands the system to open for a bug check.
A notification reveals the script has been updated, highlighting Chin-ye's secret feelings for someone else.
The system prompts the player to use this revelation to confront and expose the man's betrayal.
Seizing the moment, Zhao Sui publicly demands a divorce, shocking his father with claims of infidelity.
The system confirms a successful plot deviation as a happy chibi fox anticipates a bright future.
Chin-ye laughs off the accusations, confusing everyone by claiming his true target was always his senior. A romantic overlay of petals frames the two, emphasizing the inescapable nature of their complex bond. A loud crash interrupts the scene as the father firmly declares the divorce will never happen.
A tall, red, fox-eared man enters, introduced by the system as Zhao Sui's intimidating older brother.
A servant greets the arrival, addressing the new presence with a respectful and formal title.
Anxiety washes over the fox-eared man as he feels the weight of his siblings' judging gaze.
The red-haired brother explains he must return to work to resolve a critical data discrepancy tonight.
With a terrifyingly calm demeanor, the older brother pats Zhao Sui's head and orders him to behave.
Exploiting the late hour, Chin-ye requests to stay over, wearing a deceptively polite and charming smile.
Upon hearing the guest rooms are unready, Chin-ye suggests sharing a bed with his husband.
Entering the private bedroom, Zhao Sui is startled to find the CEO already waiting for him inside. Panicking, the fox-eared man makes a clumsy excuse to flee toward the safety of the bathroom.
Left alone, the dark-haired man smiles knowingly, enjoying the flustered reaction of his younger partner.
Chibi Chin-ye teases his partner's sudden panic, wondering why a simple shoe change caused such alarm.
The CEO explores the room, his footsteps silent as he takes in the details of the sanctuary.
Chin-ye discovers the system's hidden archives, reviewing detailed player information and several framed personal photographs.
Staring at a bright photo of his senior, the dark-haired man finds the youthful expression incredibly endearing.
Emerging from the bath, a wet and disheveled Zhao Sui catches the man snooping through his things.
An angry chibi Zhao Sui scolds him for the intrusion while the CEO maintains a playful attitude.
Chin-ye's gaze lingers on the damp, fluffy tail, his eyes filled with a growing, intense fascination.
The CEO approaches, offering to help dry the wet tail, while his partner reacts with visible embarrassment.
Zhao Sui pulls away, protecting his sensitive tail as Chin-ye notes how easily the man flushes.
Dismissing the protest, Chin-ye reaches out to pinch a damp ear to test his partner's patience.
Overwhelmed by the physical contact, the fox-eared man shivers under the CEO's persistent and teasing touch.
Reversing the dynamic, Zhao Sui demands a turn to touch the man if he's truly bold.
Accepting the challenge, Chin-ye begins to unbutton his shirt with a confident and challenging look.
Shirtless and dominant, the dark-haired man invites his senior to explore wherever his heart desires tonight.
Chibi Zhao Sui admires the impressive physique, praising the game's high-quality design and perfect body proportions.
The fox-eared man gently touches the warm skin, marveling at the realistic texture of his co-star's body.
Fingers trace the line of the man's collarbone, lost in the sensory immersion of the romance game. Snapping back to reality, Zhao Sui quickly retracts his hand, embarrassed by his own sudden lack of restraint.
Chin-ye pulls him back, urging him to continue and guiding his hand toward his own forehead.
While touching the man's head, Zhao Sui notices strange, shimmering scales that he never previously observed. The CEO flinches and recoils rapidly, reacting as if a deep, hidden secret has been touched.
Left in a state of confusion, the fox-eared man wonders what caused such a sharp defensive reaction.
A mischievous chibi devil appears, celebrating the discovery of a new and vital piece of information. Zhao Sui teases the man about finding his weak spot, while Chin-ye warns him to stop. The fox-eared man looks on with wide eyes, surprised by the intensity of the CEO's command.
Exhausted by the emotional whirl, Zhao Sui collapses onto the soft bed, surrounded by blossoming floral patterns.
Hovering over the shirtless CEO, the fox-eared man ponderously reflects on the reality of their touch.
Looking down at his legs, the fox-eared man notes the game's unsettlingly realistic and physical sensations. Overwhelmed by the situation, the flustered fox-eared man covers his face to hide a deep blush. Chin-ye demands an answer while the fox-eared man looks on with a tearful, overwhelmed expression.
With a playful smirk, the dark-haired CEO asks if his partner desires to continue their activities.
Chibi Chin-ye orders a curled-up Zhao Sui to sleep and stop provoking him for tonight.
Carrying a towel, a chibi Chin-ye heads toward the bathroom after their long night together.
Watching his partner sleep, the CEO lingers in the room before departing for the morning.
Chin-ye admires the sleeping fox-eared man, noting how well-behaved he appears while at rest.
A close-up reveals the CEO's intense reptilian gaze as he watches over his slumbering partner.
In a sudden flashback, a younger pink-haired youth runs after a dark-haired young master.
Desperate and tearful, the pink-haired youth begs the departing man to take him along instead. Cradling the youth's face, the dark-haired man listens as Zhao Sui promises to remain perfectly obedient.
The youth's blue eyes brim with tears as he pleads for a chance to stay together. Firmly holding the boy, the dark-haired man reflects on the weight of such a desperate promise.
Feeling pity, the man worries that Zhao Sui will eventually leave, even if he takes him.
Grabbing the man's hand, Zhao Sui insists he will never leave and begs for a future. Draping his coat over the shivering boy, the man admits he never intended to go alone.
Embracing under the falling petals, the man holds Zhao Sui close as they find common ground.
Waking up alone in the massive bed, Zhao Sui wonders if his partner has already left. Recalling the intensity of last night, the fox-eared man feels a lingering sense of dazed confusion.
Staring blankly at the ceiling, Zhao Sui reminds himself that everything was just a game simulation.
A sad Chibi Zhao Sui reflects on the cold reality of interacting with digital data alone.
Surrounded by geese, Chibi Zhao Sui stubbornly asserts that his feelings are merely reactions to data.
Checking his system, Zhao Sui notes an upcoming variety show task with his co-star, Man Wen.
Dressed in a plaid coat, the fox-eared man is greeted by a butler for his breakfast.
Checking his watch, the cat-eared butler scolds Zhao Sui for sleeping late and skipping his meal.
Angrily refusing to eat, Chibi Zhao Sui argues with the butler while being rushed to leave. Chibi Zhao Sui fumes over the household's blatant favoritism toward his older brother's comfort and rest.
Storming out of the mansion, Zhao Sui decides to ignore his brother's presence for the day.
Arriving in a scenic town square, the fox-eared man admires the beautiful architecture of the area.
Locating a local bookstore, Zhao Sui realizes this unassuming building houses the game's hidden item shop.
Entering the quiet bookstore, the fox-eared man begins searching for a way to the upper level.
Ascending the staircase, Zhao Sui notes the dark, eerie atmosphere surrounding the hidden shop's second floor.
Security systems lock onto Zhao Sui as a mysterious guardian verifies his identity before allowing access.
A cheerful chibi cat entity welcomes the fox-eared man to browse the exclusive items available.
Shivering in fear, a Chibi Zhao Sui is left traumatized by the intense security of the shop. Stepping into the light, the fox-eared man's white sneakers sparkle as he enters the main hall.
The fox-eared man marvels at the breathtakingly fancy and sparkling interior of the secret item shop.
Scanning the lavish surroundings, Zhao Sui is stunned by the high level of luxury within the shop.
Browsing the shelves, Zhao Sui finds various item cards and strategy guides available for high prices.
Filled with excitement, the fox-eared man greedily wishes he could purchase every item on the shelves.
Multiple system warnings pop up, informing Zhao Sui that he lacks the funds for most items.
Realizing his wallet is nearly empty, Zhao Sui laments his poverty and the need for more tasks.
With only 100 coins remaining, the fox-eared man decides to try his luck elsewhere today.
Spending his final coins, Zhao Sui initiates a lucky spin to obtain 3 random item cards.
The system grants him 3 rare cards, Charm, Shapeshift, and a full information disclosure ability. Waving goodbye, a chibi fox leaves the shop as the black cat entity wishes him well.
Descending the stairs, Zhao Sui grumbles about drawing what he considers to be embarrassing and useless cards.
Despite his disappointment with the cards, Zhao Sui heads out to prepare for the next filming day.
Identifying the white-haired man in the bookstore, Zhao Sui wonders why he has suddenly appeared.
Panicking, the fox-eared man hides his glowing bracelet while the white-haired man asks what he's concealing.
Zhao Sui laughs off the suspicion, claiming he has no treasure and noting the odd coincidence.
The white-haired man mentions his frequent visits to the shop while gently taking Zhao Sui's hand. Continuing to hold his hand, the junior mentions he only just discovered the second floor's accessibility. With an intense and questioning gaze, the white-haired man asks if something special is hidden upstairs. Flustered, Zhao Sui lies that the owner asked him to search for an obscure book upstairs. A tight focus on the white-haired man's piercing pink eye captures his silent, calculating reaction. The white-haired chibi appears to accept the lie, leaving a relieved Zhao Sui surprised by the outcome.
Receiving a notification, the white-haired chibi realizes he has another appointment and must depart immediately.
The white-haired man kisses Zhao Sui's hand, bidding him farewell until tomorrow's filming begins.
As the younger man walks away, the fox-eared man watches with a lingering sense of unease.
Zhao Sui reflects on the man's unsettling gaze, feeling as though he were being hunted like prey.
A chibi Zhao Sui wonders if his overactive imagination is simply misinterpreting the dating game's simulation.
The scene transitions to the grand mansion as the evening sky begins to fade into twilight.
Returning home, a hungry chibi Zhao Sui laments having missed his meals due to a stressful day.
The fox-eared man recalls the scolding he received this morning, which originally ruined his appetite.
In a memory, servants prepare a lavish spread of treats specifically intended for his older brother. The narrative moves quickly through the mansion's opulent corridors as Zhao Sui seeks out the kitchen. Discovering a refrigerator stocked with various drinks and snacks, Zhao Sui prepares to satisfy his hunger.
A grumpy chibi Zhao Sui fumes about how blatantly the household favorites his older brother's needs. Determination fills the fox-eared man's eyes as he prepares to help himself to the available food.
A maid abruptly stops him, informing him that the gourmet spread is not intended for him.
The servant coldly directs him to the back kitchen, emphasizing meals are only for the master.
She explains the family's tradition of recognizing only one true young master before his arrival.
Defiant, Zhao Sui decides to eat the brother's saved food anyway to spite the household's favoritism.
The fox-eared man resolves to consume everything himself, challenging the unfair rules of his home.
An angry chibi Zhao Sui aggressively stuffs his face with bread, fueled by his lingering resentment.
The mansion remains silent under the dark night sky as the late hours of the evening pass.
Returning home looking weary, the red-haired brother enters the mansion and begins searching for a snack.
A close-up highlights the brother's elegant waist and attire as he moves through the quiet house.
Entering the kitchen, the red-haired man questions why Zhao Sui is still awake and eating late.
Startled, a chibi Zhao Sui panics, having wrongly assumed his brother wouldn't return until much later.
Making a clumsy excuse, Zhao Sui claims he specifically prepared the snacks for his brother's return.
The brother remains skeptical, lecturing him on the importance of maintaining a healthy celebrity physique.
Suddenly, Zhao Sui is caught off guard by an intense, lingering stare from his older sibling.
The red-haired man roughly grabs Zhao Sui's chin, forcing him to endure his judging gaze.
He orders Zhao Sui to focus on work and stop causing public scandals that embarrass him.
Stunned and hurt by the harsh criticism, Zhao Sui quietly insists he wasn't causing any trouble.
Dismissing him with a cold command, the brother tells him to clean up and go to bed.
Admiring his brother's fluffy tail, Zhao Sui touches it and triggers a shocked and pained reaction.
Angered by the contact, the red-haired man yells at him for forgetting how sensitive tails are.
Despite Zhao Sui's fears of rejection, a system notification announces an unexpected increase in family bond.
A confused chibi Zhao Sui wonders why his stats are rising despite his brother's apparent dislike.
The scene shifts to a moving car where a manager warns Zhao Sui not to fall asleep.
Sitting in the car, Zhao Sui hears about the ongoing online ridicule regarding his past rejection. The manager encourages him to use the upcoming live variety show as a chance to redeem himself.
Wearing sunglasses, Zhao Sui tiredly points out that the manager's noise is preventing his rest.
The manager reveals that despite the show's unscripted nature, he will be grouped with Yan Wen.
Zhao Sui reacts with surprise to the news, wondering why he's being paired with that person.
A close-up focus captures the fox-eared man's intense blue eyes as a memory of his co-star lingers.
The pink-haired man removes his glasses, reminding himself that building goodwill with Yan Wen is essential for escape.
Sitting in the back of the car, the green-haired manager catches the glasses while monitoring the schedule.
Arriving at the filming site, the host excitedly announces the arrival of the stylish celebrity, teacher Zhao Sui.
A determined chibi Zhao Sui vows to maximize his goodwill with Yan Wen during the upcoming variety show.
Caught off guard, the fox-eared man feels a sudden hand rest on his shoulder from behind.
The white-haired junior leans in close, greeting his senior warmly and noting his early arrival at the set.
Cameras capture the scene while a nearby smartphone displays a live stream flooded with excited fan comments. Online viewers gossip about Zhao Sui's past rejection and express their delight at the unrequited love dynamic.
A sleek white sports car pulls up to the entrance, signaling the arrival of the final guest.
Livestream chat boxes explode with speculation as fans identify the newcomer as a mysterious young master.
The chauffeur opens the door for the prestigious guest, whose expensive attire hints at his high social status.
Stunned, the fox-eared man recognizes the dark-haired man and questions why he has appeared at the show.
A panicked chibi Zhao Sui wonders why the script is changing and why this man is interfering again.
A red system alert flashes, warning that someone has trespassed into Yan Wen's exclusive storyline.
Visual glitches and shattered fragments surround the dark-haired man, indicating a significant disruption in the simulation.
Yan Wen expresses genuine surprise at seeing President Qin, while the dark-haired man remains silent and observant. Chibi Yan Wen insists he is here to protect Zhao Sui, while the chibi dark-haired man remains skeptical. In a chibi struggle, the dark-haired man grabs the fox while Yan Wen tries to pull him away.
Squeezed between the two rivaling men, a flattened chibi Zhao Sui is overwhelmed by their sudden competitiveness.
The host marvels at the star-studded lineup while the men continue their silent, tense confrontation in the background.
Other celebrities, including the lop-eared model Subai, arrive and approach the main group with cheerful greetings.
Narrowing his eyes, the fox-eared man suspects the newcomer of having an ulterior motive for his behavior.
A digital profile identifies Subai as a lop-eared rabbit model harboring years of resentment towards Zhao Sui.
The pink-haired man maintains a calm facade while processing the hidden hostility of his rival colleague.
Zhao Sui reflects on how typical it is for such cannon fodder roles to appear in this game.
Pretending to just notice him, the rabbit-eared man offers a fake apology for ignoring Zhao Sui's presence.
Smiling coldly, Zhao Sui excuses the snub by mockingly attributing it to the man's notoriously poor eyesight.
Subai fires back, commenting on Zhao Sui's tendency to cause scandals that trend on social media.
A panicked chibi rabbit suddenly remembers the livestream, pleading with fans not to search for Zhao Sui's history.
Fans in the comments see through the manipulation, accusing the rabbit man of bullying Zhao Sui during filming.
Looking down, the fox-eared man laments how annoying the game's scripted drama has become at every turn. Recalling past missions and difficult interactions, Zhao Sui considers abandoning the exhausting task of restoring his reputation. Filled with renewed defiance, the pink-haired man decides he will no longer endure the petty insults of others. Zhao Sui sarcastically commends Subai's manipulative skills, causing the rabbit-eared man to flinch in surprise.
Despite the ongoing livestream, Zhao Sui pulls the man close and whispers a terrifying threat into his ear.
The fox-eared man graphically describes plucking the rabbit's fur and turning him into a spicy cooked dish.
A shadowy chibi fox towers over the terrified rabbit, demonstrating the sheer dominance of the natural food chain.
Online viewers are thrilled by Zhao Sui's fierce attitude, praising his sudden display of strength and personality.
Noticing the dark-haired man's amusement, Zhao Sui asks him what exactly he finds so funny about the situation.
President Qin smiles subtly, claiming he was simply lost in thought while observing the fox-eared man's actions.
A close-up of the dark-haired man's golden eye reveals his satisfaction at seeing the little fox's true nature.
The man reflects on how Zhao Sui has always been unyielding and never learned to bow to others.
Gently patting the youth's ear, President Qin admits he only hopes that Zhao Sui won't be hurt again.
The production team explains that participants must form pairs and their compatibility will determine their success in tasks.
Chibi female stars discuss their preferences, hoping to partner with people they have collaborated with successfully before. The rabbit-eared chibi is torn between picking the famous actors while fans mock her delusional social climbing.
A firm hand suddenly reaches out and grabs Zhao Sui's wrist, stopping him in his tracks.
Yan Wen holds his hand and begs his senior to choose him, promising to help him win.
As the goodwill score rises, the white-haired man confesses how much he liked Zhao Sui's previous fierce behavior. Yan Wen leans in close to Zhao Sui, their faces nearly touching in a quiet, intimate moment.
Surprised by Yan Wen's submissive side, Chibi Zhao Sui wonders if he secretly enjoys such roleplay while the junior expresses his liking.
President Qin abruptly pulls Zhao Sui close and firmly demands that the fox-eared man pair up with him instead.
Panicked, Chibi Zhao Sui worries about farming goodwill points with the interference and hopes the system moves Qin away.
The dark-haired man promises to obey every command, leaving the youth to question the extent of his compliance.
A provocative vision of a tamed President Qin leaves Zhao Sui wondering about the possibilities of their new dynamic.
Delighting in the thought of a submissive CEO, the chibi fox considers how satisfying this reversal of roles would be.
Zhao Sui reflects on how the dark-haired man usually bullies him despite his current cooperative and obedient attitude.
Considering this a rare chance for revenge, Zhao Sui notes Qin's resemblance to a familiar face from his past.
To Zhao's shock, the host announces his pairing with Yan Wen despite his internal choice to pick Chen.
The variety show production team explains that task locations are scattered across the city for the participating guests.
Completing the upcoming challenges will reward the competing teams with special digital cards to use during the game.
A final tally and a grand podium await the winners as the travel variety show officially starts its activities.
The host encourages everyone to enjoy the scenery and local food while moving according to their group assignments.
While walking, Zhao Sui spots a task point and earns high praise from Yan Wen for his sharp eyes.
Eager to win, the white-haired junior grabs Zhao Sui's hand and rushes toward the target location to beat others.
Arriving at a shop, Yan Wen confirms with the deer-eared staff member that they have reached a task point.
The staff member asks if the 4 rival guests are together, much to the chibi group's frustration and annoyance.
Smiling politely, Yan Wen asks President Qin to acknowledge that his team arrived at the task location first.
President Qin dismisses the claim, pointing out there's no rule against multiple teams completing the same task simultaneously.
The dark-haired man's golden eyes narrow as he prepares to further assert his presence and disrupt the current pairing.
Tension rises as President Qin's hand grips Zhao Sui's wrist, signaling his firm refusal to let the youth go.
Asserting that more people on screen is better, Chibi President Qin forces himself into the pair's current activity.
Flabbergasted by the bickering men, a frustrated Chibi Zhao Sui finds their sudden competitive behavior completely unbelievable and exhausting.
The scene shifts inside a bright clothing store filled with various fashionable outfits and accessories for the guests.
A staff member explains the rules. Pick outfits to find cards, but you must wear your choice throughout.
Determined to find a card, Zhao Sui begins carefully searching through the rows of hanging garments in the shop.
A pair of black dress shoes decisively approaches the fox-eared man as he finishes browsing the clothing selection.
Noticing the sudden presence behind him, Zhao Sui pauses and begins to turn toward the person standing very close.
A close-up captures Zhao Sui's wide-eyed expression of shock as he comes face-to-face with an unyielding President Qin.
Zhao Sui laments his bad luck at being teamed with the man, who also appears somewhat displeased by the situation. The fox-eared man internally questions why the system forced this specific partnership upon him during the variety show.
Chibi Zhao Sui struggles to explain his goal of winning over the dark-haired man despite their difficult history together.
President Qin dismisses the rules while a red system warning flashes, signaling another major disruption in the script.
Clutching his head in pain, President Qin experiences a spoiler-related backlash as the system forces an immediate plot correction.
Startled by the sudden contact, Zhao Sui looks back at the man who has firmly grabbed his shoulder again.
President Qin insists on changing teammates, reminding the youth of his previous promise to obey all of his commands.
Recalling the man's vow of total obedience, the fox-eared youth considers how to use this leverage to his advantage.
The pair selects their outfits, questioning the staff about hidden cards while preparing to test their choices in dressing.
Zhao Sui challenges the dark-haired man to prove his obedience by wearing the flamboyant outfit he has chosen for him.
Looking directly at the youth, President Qin mockingly agrees to the request with a sly and knowing smile.
Dazzled by the result, Zhao Sui admits that the CEO looks more like a celebrity than he does now.
The youth suggests the man should debut immediately, but a smiling President Chin simply tells him to stop laughing.
To their delight, the chibi pair discovers they have successfully found a card hidden within the chosen outfit.
Buoyed by their success, an energetic Chibi Zhao Sui shoves another outfit toward the dark-haired man for more testing.
President Qin skeptically inspects the pink garment, questioning if the small size will fit his broad, muscular frame.
Accusing him of making excuses, Zhao Sui pulls at the man's shirt to reveal his impressive and defined physique.
Annoyed by the man's teasing, a blushing Chibi Zhao Sui huffs and decides to go change his own outfit.
Emerging in a frilly white outfit, Zhao Sui laments its lack of cards, while President Qin calls it average.
Softening his tone, the dark-haired man offers a genuine compliment, telling Zhao Sui he looks great in the clothes.
Chibi Zhao Sui and Chin stand together in matching outfits, frustrating a nearby rabbit.
Zhao Sui notices their identical clothes, while the dark-haired man claims he hadn't realized.
The white-haired junior approaches the group, calling out to his senior in the store.
Yan Wen leans in closely to sniff the fox-eared man's neck with focused intensity.
The white-haired man questions the change in scent, and Zhao Sui attributes it to clothes.
Chibi Yan Wen begs for praise while Zhao Sui reflects on his dog-like sense of smell.
The fox-eared chibi imagines the terrifying drama of dating someone with such a clingy personality.
Yan Wen notices his senior lacks cards and proceeds to find some for the group.
The white-haired man offers a heart-themed card declaring that everything he has belongs to Zhao Sui.
Yan Wen taunts Qin by asserting their team's superiority, much to Zhao Sui's mounting embarrassment.
Walking through a scenic town, the junior asks for their next destination in the game.
Zhao Sui expresses shock at Yan Wen's secret task map which he found during earlier challenges.
Chibi montages showcase Yan Wen's impressive athletic skills and his successful search for game cards.
Night falls over the quiet Mediterranean-style town, signaled by a bright full moon appearing.
A group mission is announced where teams must prepare local dinner dishes based on rank. The scoreboard reveals Zhao Sui and Yan Wen are currently in the lowest scoring third place. Su Bai mockingly pities Zhao Sui's bad luck, fueling the fox-eared man's silent, frustrated anger.
Yan Wen repeatedly encourages his senior to draw cards throughout their various competitive team activities.
Heading out for ingredients, a cheerful Yan Wen contrasts sharply with Zhao Sui's visible exhaustion.
The junior admits his happiness comes from liking his senior, leaving Zhao Sui visibly stunned.
Yan Wen questions Zhao Sui's reaction, wondering if he has forgotten their shared history from before.
Disturbed by the mention of a past, Zhao Sui realizes the script omitted this information.
A hooded figure suddenly sprints through the narrow street, colliding roughly with the pink-haired man. The stranger offers a quick apology and continues running while the two companions watch him.
Sensing something wrong, Yan Wen reaches out and firmly grabs the fleeing man by his shoulder.
The white-haired man uses his foot to swiftly trip the hooded stranger during his escape.
Falling flat on the stone pavement, the man drops a white envelope from his pocket.
Yan Wen retrieves the envelope and identifies it as the stolen funding for their television program.
The junior mocks the thief's old tactics, leaving both the thief and Zhao Sui intimidated. Zhao Sui asks how he knew, but Yan Wen vaguely dismisses having recognized the stranger.
A digital system interface completes a memory download, causing Zhao Sui to experience a sudden headache.
The fox-eared man's consciousness slips into a blurry and distant recollection of his forgotten childhood.
Zhao Sui remembers a specific white-haired boy from his past while watching a garden scene.
Chibi Zhao Sui questions why the boy would appear in such a place during his youth.
In a flashback, the white-haired youth smiles while discussing Zhao Sui's supposedly carefree childhood years.
The boy's expression softens as he reveals that his assumption about Zhao Sui's past was wrong.
Memories of a dark welfare center and overwhelming loneliness haunt the pink-haired man's troubled mind.
Young Yan Wen meets a hostile young Zhao Sui, who bluntly tells him to get lost. Despite his initial coldness, the young fox-eared boy eventually offers his favorite snack to share. The two boys bond over books as Yan Wen announces his budding career as a model. Yan Wen encourages the boy to find him later, promising a future meeting at a show. Zhao Sui realizes with shock that his senior was the true catalyst for his professional career. Yan Wen asks why he is reacting poorly after all the help he has provided him.
Overwhelmed by the revelation, the fox-eared man remains silent while processing his complicated past relationship.
A childhood memory shows parents arguing about divorce and unwanted debt behind a closed door.
A woman roughly pulls the young boy's shirt, warning him to stop mocking her during their fight.
Another woman coldly rejects the title of mother, stating that no one cares about her life. Standing alone in the pouring rain, the young boy reflects on his deep and miserable loneliness.
The dark-haired man appears in the storm, holding the boy's hand as a ray of hope.
Zhao Sui gazes at President Qin, acknowledging him as the person who gave his existence meaning.
Thinking of Liang Ye, the fox-eared man admits he has been avoiding the painful memory during this time.
Zhao Sui wonders if his absence would evoke sadness or indifference from the man he left behind.
Standing alone, the fox-eared youth watches as two figures walk away into the distant bright light. Yan Wen repeatedly calls out to his senior, questioning why he seems so distant and troubled. Noticing the tears in his eyes, the white-haired junior asks if his senior is currently crying.
Yan Wen reassures Zhao Sui that he needs no pity, having achieved great success on his own.
Overwhelmed by emotion, Zhao Sui hides his face while wondering why he is suddenly losing his composure.
The fox-eared man looks at President Qin, finding comfort in the presence of someone truly meaningful.
Gazing at the man's hands, Zhao Sui internally confesses that he truly misses his companion's steady presence.
The scene shifts to the bright exterior of a modern convenience store standing quiet under the night.
A hand pulls open the glass door as a digital greeting welcomes the guests to the shop.
Arriving at a task point, Yan Wen notes that the store is the quickest way to finish.
Chibi Zhao Sui is emotionally overwhelmed by how incredibly realistic and familiar the in-game convenience store appears.
Yan Wen selects a snack while the fox-eared man questions his junior's intense and questionable food choices.
A visual of incredibly spicy ghost pepper chips highlights the extreme flavor profile the junior has chosen.
Chibi Yan Wen eagerly asks Zhao Sui which flavor he prefers as they browse the many snack options.
Zhao Sui considers a refreshing, normal flavor before realizing his own preferences might be quite unusual.
To the junior's delight, Zhao Sui reveals his shared love for the incredibly spicy snack flavor.
Chibi Yan Wen celebrates their perfect match while Zhao Sui remains somewhat bewildered by the sudden excitement.
Noticing a significant jump in affection level, the fox-eared man finds the system's reaction quite strange.
Despite the rising affection levels, Zhao Sui reflects that he doesn't feel the expected sense of happiness.
The youth wonders if the higher affection levels are making the emotional rewards feel less impactful overall.
Zhao Sui reacts with sudden realization as someone nearby announces they are coming to assist him immediately.
Enjoying ice cream together, Zhao Sui comments on the great taste while Yan Wen watches him intently.
The junior notes Zhao Sui's unique taste and promises to treat him after the show's filming ends.
Yan Wen enthusiastically directs his senior's attention toward another interesting item found within the store shelves.
Looking closely at Zhao Sui, the white-haired man points out that he is acting very differently tonight. Yan Wen reflects on how Zhao Sui previously kept his heart closed despite his many persistent efforts.
The junior notes that their past interactions felt like Zhao Sui was merely performing a mandatory task.
Smiling gently, Yan Wen expresses his joy that Zhao Sui finally seems to view him as a friend.
The two men walk through the brightly lit aisles of the store, continuing their conversation and shopping.
A store prompt reveals the total cost for their purchases amounts to over 800 yuan. Leaving the store, they discuss finishing their task while a small girl runs toward them in excitement. A little girl with mouse ears offers candy to Zhao Sui to celebrate her special birthday.
The girl explains her parents taught her to share luck while Zhao Sui watches her family dining.
Remembering Yan Wen's difficult past, Zhao Sui wonders how the junior will react to the girl's kindness.
Reassuring his senior, the white-haired man leans in and calmly states that he is doing perfectly fine.
A hand places a plastic shopping bag down on the pavement as they pause their current task. Yan Wen thanks the girl for the candy and promises to give her a birthday gift too.
Chibi Zhao Sui works diligently on a craft while Yan Wen watches him with an observant expression. Presenting a small origami cat, the junior wishes the little girl a very happy birthday with a gift.
A close-up of Zhao Sui's eye captures a moment of deep realization and internal reflection.
Zhao Sui admits he once arrogantly viewed the inhabitants of this world as mere insignificant game characters.
Looking at his companions, he realizes that these people possess their own deep loves, hates, and lives. A montage of various lively scenes emphasizes how vivid and real the inhabitants of this world are.
Zhao Sui questions if this world is truly any different from the reality he once called home. Yan Wen feels touched by Zhao Sui's worry as the affection level rises to 65%.
The fox-eared man admits he wants the affection levels to rise slower so he can stay longer.
Holding hands, Yan Wen acknowledges their friendship and offers congratulations on Zhao Sui's success as a star.
The junior tells Zhao Sui he has finally fulfilled his wish of stepping out from the shadows.
Yan Wen reflects on an earlier wish while looking at his senior.
In a flashback, he remembers being trapped and manipulated in an orphanage during his youth.
He describes his life back then as being controlled by someone else's script.
Though he sought freedom upon leaving, he eventually realized the world was another cage.
Touching a digital wall, he concludes the world is just another cage. He admits to feeling trapped inside the digital constraints of his current existence.
Back in the present, Yan Wen asks Zhao Sui if he would help him again.
Zhao Sui happily affirms their friendship as Yan Wen gently touches his face.
An announcement heralds the return of the procurement team as the evening task begins.
The director explains that the teams must now cook delicious dishes according to recipes.
Online comments praise the top team's chemistry while worrying about Zhao Sui's cooking skills.
Chibi Zhao Sui panics because he has absolutely no culinary talent whatsoever. He's about 2 seconds away from calling for a fire extinguisher.
President Qin looks at the recipe and confidently states that the dish is simple.
Onlookers are stunned by the CEO's talent, expressing shock and deep envy.
President Qin notices Zhao Sui staring and asks why he is looking.
He reveals he learned to cook because of a former gluttonous roommate.
Su Bai excitedly speculates that cooking for a roommate implies a very special relationship.
Zhao Sui remembers a script detail about Qin Ye's past love and wonders.
President Qin watches the fox-eared man with a mysterious and knowing smirk.
A flashback shows the young master entering a kitchen to find someone searching. He catches the boy and asks what he is doing in the dark. The startled boy recognizes him as the young master and reacts with fear.
He claims he was only looking for water while his stomach growls loudly.
The boy apologizes and flees as the young master tries to call him back.
The boy sits alone outside a closed door while someone knocks within.
He finds a tray of food in the hallway and asks who sent it.
The boy is amazed by the pasta and wonders about the mysterious sender.
He realizes it wasn't the staff and wonders if the young master sent it.
Uncle Butler watches as the hungry boy discovers the hidden tray of food.
The boy smiles happily as he enjoys the delicious gift left for him.
From the shadows, the young master affectionately calls the boy an idiot.
The task is completed and the director awards 10 points to each team.
The group gathers as the director questions their satisfaction with the current points.
A rule change is announced, focusing the final evaluation on individual points. 3 accommodation options are shown. Matching choices will determine the new roommates. The director explains that partners can stay together by paying 20 points.
Subai angrily refuses to pay, calling the price a robbery.
Yan Wen reassures Zhao Sui, claiming the system has already locked them together.
President Qin watches them with glowing eyes and a mysterious expression.
Dark roses and digital effects frame the tense atmosphere of the night.
Night settles over the town, with one specific house lit up brightly.
The director tells Zhao Sui that only 2 room types remain for him.
Zhao Sui notices a sign for a hot spring and asks for clarification.
Yan Wen enjoys the hot spring, thinking the setting sounds absolutely perfect.
He hopes a romantic encounter will occur to boost the affection level.
Zhao Sui points to the house with the hot spring as his selection.
He enters the room dismissively thinking the system is rigged anyway.
Steam fills the air as Zhao Sui's feet step onto the wet floor.
He spots a muscular figure in the mist and praises his great physique.
Zhao Sui jumps onto the shirtless man's back with a playful greeting.
Chibi Zhao Sui admires President Qin's muscular arm, marveling at how incredible they feel to touch.
The fox-eared man notes that the other has clearly put a lot of effort into training.
Zhao Sui is stunned to find President Qin in the room and demands an explanation.
President Qin stares back calmly, questioning exactly who Zhao Sui was actually expecting to see tonight.
The fox-eared man whispers his preference for Yan Wen, much to the CEO's visible annoyance.
Water erupts in a massive splash as someone enters the depths of the hot spring pool.
Zhao Sui lands directly against the shirtless man's chest, leading to a very close, tense encounter.
Panicking, Zhao Sui complains that his current outfit was meant for tomorrow's filming schedule.
President Qin dismisses his concerns, assuring him the production crew will handle any wardrobe issues easily.
A close-up reveals President Qin's eye transforming, showing a distinct reptilian slit pupil.
The man questions why he is wearing clothes in a spring and tells him to change.
President Qin pulls the flustered youth closer, offering his assistance with the damp clothing.
Zhao Sui's face turns bright red as he struggles with the proximity and the man's boldness.
The youth snaps that it is none of his business and tells the man to back off.
The luxurious hot spring room remains quiet and still as the steam rises from the water.
Zhao Sui observes the man from a distance, internally praising his impressive physique and good looks. He recalls a past moment sitting on the man's lap and wonders about snake physiology. Chibi Zhao Sui decides he made the right choice by not targeting this intimidating man initially. Looking thoughtful, the fox-eared man continues to ponder the unique characteristics of snake-type inhabitants.
Chibi Zhao Sui asks about his differentiation level and requests to see the man's snake tail.
President Qin pulls him close, negotiating what Zhao Sui will offer in exchange for that sight.
Now in a robe, Zhao Sui claims he has nothing worth showing, but the man persists.
President Qin touches the youth's robe, purring that he is actually interested in seeing everything.
The shirtless man suggests starting their exchange by examining the little fox's sharp claws.
Zhao Sui looks at him with suspicion, questioning what kind of strange fetish the man has.
Activating a shapeshift card from his shop, Zhao Sui transforms his hands and feet into paws.
He looks at his new animalistic features, finding the physical transformation to be incredibly strange. Claws out, the youth shows them off while President Qin finds the new look absolutely adorable.
President Qin catches the youth's hand and licks his paw, catching Zhao Sui completely off guard.
Chibi Zhao Sui reacts with pure horror, loudly accusing the CEO of being an absolute pervert.
President Qin leans in, teasingly asking if such a small gesture is truly considered being perverted.
Demanding fairness, the Chibi Fox insists it is now time to see the man's snake tail.
President Qin gives a mysterious smirk, his reptilian eyes glowing with an intense and knowing light.
A massive, dark snake tail emerges from the water, coiling powerfully around the entire pool area. Initially frightened, Zhao Sui finds the sight of the giant tail to be quite impressive and fascinating. Touching the scales, he decides the damp tail actually looks quite charming and not scary at all. Chibi President Qin warns the youth to stop touching sensitive areas he isn't supposed to reach.
Zhao Sui calls the man stingy while a chibi goose looks on at their petty bickering.
President Qin asks if Yan Wen is more generous while the tail coils around the youth.
Zhao Sui struggles as the snake tail begins to pull him toward the shirtless man again. The youth demands to be released as they splash around in the dark hot spring water.
Chibi Zhao Sui bites the tail, reminding the man about tomorrow's filming while questioning his behavior. The scene transitions to the next morning as the group gathers for a quiet outdoor breakfast.
President Qin asks why he is still upset, but Zhao Sui stubbornly denies being angry at all.
The man points out the youth's droopy fox ears as proof of his current tire mood.
Chibi Zhao Sui snaps at the man to stop touching his ears and leave him alone. The youth tells him to finish eating while the man asks if he's waiting for teammates.
Chibi Zhao Sui stuffs his face with food, claiming he has only just begun his meal.
He orders more dishes, eventually sitting atop a high tower of steaming food containers.
President Qin watches with a small smile as Zhao Sui continues to eat his breakfast in peace. A hand reaches out toward a pale waist cinched by a decorative white belt.
President Qin pinches Zhao Sui's waist, questioning how the small fox eats so much without gaining weight. Chibi Zhao Sui snaps about the pinching while President Qin offers to fetch him more food. The sunlight illuminates a serene outdoor dining area with empty tables and potted palm trees.
President Qin accepts a plate of pastries, offering a brief word of thanks to the server.
Yan Wen leans against a wall, observing that the CEO seems to care deeply for Zhao Sui.
President Qin questions the implication of the comment, but the junior dismissively claims it was nothing.
In a flashback, the junior wonders if the man previously disliked Zhao Sui despite his current behavior.
President Qin warns the other that they aren't close, while Yan Wen claims to understand him perfectly.
Gazing intently at the man, Yan Wen notes that things feel significantly different during this encounter.
Zhao Sui grabs the junior's wrist, but the pink-haired man coldly demands that he not touch him.
President Qin stares with a dark expression, warning the other man to stay away from him.
The two men walk away from each other, their footsteps echoing through the narrow sunlit alleyway.
Yan Wen watches their departure with a weary sigh as the wind blows through the town.
Touching his face, the pink-haired man mutters that the current situation is becoming increasingly tricky to handle.
A close-up reveals the man's eyes glowing with an intense, predatory red light as he watches.
Back at the table, a dish of pastries sits next to a plate with a single toast. President Qin feeds a snack to Zhao Sui, while Yan Wen watches the display with growing resentment.
Zhao Sui looks flustered and embarrassed as the dark-haired man continues to dote on him.
President Qin suggests that the fox-eared youth slow down his eating pace to avoid getting tired. Chibi Zhao Sui aggressively drags the smiling CEO along, demanding that he hurry up for their task.
The youth explains that his mission failure resulted in a cross-dressing punishment he is too embarrassed to perform. Chibi Zhao Sui is baffled by the CEO's visible excitement upon hearing about the upcoming cross-dressing penalty.
Zhao Sui reviews the final mission requirements, noting it is worth 20 points and he cannot lose.
President Qin suggests ignoring the mission to have fun with the funds, prompting an angry rejection.
Zhao Sui points at a nearby sign, reacting with shock at the costs or the next location.
Chibi panels show the duo spending currency on snacks, taxis, and seashell decorations despite the mission.
Small illustrations of sea creatures and falling coins accompany a comment about spotting a tiny crab.
Zhao Sui fumes, realizing the CEO isn't even attempting to complete their assigned mission objectives today.
Searching for check-in points, the youth notices local children holding special cards and showing them off.
Zhao Sui recalls his information reveal card, wondering if its effect might assist with their current mission.
The youth activates the card, which is designed to reveal hidden details about non-target inhabitants.
Light sparkles around Zhao Sui's face as he prepares to use the card's special sensory ability.
Looking down the street, the youth sees favorability percentages floating in hearts above every person's head.
Zhao Sui turns toward President Qin, who is suddenly standing there holding a massive bouquet of flowers.
The youth's eyes widen as a giant heart revealing 100% favorability appears over the CEO.
Zhao Sui looks completely shell-shocked by the maximum rating, struggling to process the unexpected information.
He tells himself it must be a mistake, remembering that the man supposedly disliked him initially.
He reflects on their middle school crush and engagement, noting the man's recent close and attentive behavior.
A single thought fills his mind as he wonders if the man truly likes him after all.
Zhao Sui's face flushes a brilliant red while his heart beats rapidly against his chest in surprise.
Chibi Zhao Sui tries to dismiss the feeling, insisting he is the player while the man is just an NPC.
A close-up of the youth's eye captures him contemplating the true nature of their current relationship.
He decides that the rating is actually just a bug in the man's programming and nothing more. Chibi Zhao Sui grumbles, realizing he could have cleared the game instantly by choosing this man first.
He notes that Yan Wen's favorability is only at 65% with 30 game days remaining.
The fox-eared man closes his eyes, trying to maintain focus on his original objective and route.
Chibi Zhao Sui glares at the smiling man, frustrated by his constant interference in his planned path.
President Qin asks why he is staring and suggests finishing the mission or just wandering around.
Zhao Sui tries to stay composed while his mind keeps drifting back to the maximum favorability score.
Chibi President Chin, holding a bouquet, asks the grumpy little fox about his recent burst of motivation.
Failed mission status reports that Zhao Sui must wear a white dress and black stockings as a penalty.
System windows confirm the keyword banquet reward brings Yan Wen's favorability to exactly 100%.
Zhao Sui calculates the total favorability, realizing he finally possesses the means to escape the game world.
Chibi Yan Wen holds a plush toy while President Qin and the youth exchange a wordless, grumpy standoff.
Quinyin Shuang asks why the little fox is suddenly accepting this cross-dressing mission so quickly now. Zhao Sui stands uncomfortably in his feminine attire while Kui Yun Shuang chats and the CEO watches.
The youth turns away with a deep blush, feeling the weight of the dark-haired man's intense gaze. Zhao Sui reflects on the bold step forward for his punishment as the director calls for his attention.
A production note indicates this specific clip will be inserted at the end of the newly released trailer.
Commenters note that as long as viewers don't recognize teacher Zhao Sui, the punishment will be successful.
Zhao Sui argues that the audience isn't foolish, but the director suggests finding another guest for help.
The youth agrees to wrap up quickly, asking if any guest can take the photo for double rewards. A close-up reveals the youth's determined expression as he decides which person to ask for assistance next.
Zhao Sui passes on partnering with Yan Wen, fearing their previous shoot together makes the pairing too obvious. He also rejects Kui Yun Shuang, worried that taking a photo with her would expose his identity immediately.
President Chin watches silently, a faint and knowing smile playing across his lips as the youth approaches.
Qin Ye teases the little fox for remembering him, while Zhao Sui tells him to just forget it. The director questions their chosen camera angle while Zhao Sui tells him to just go with it.
Zhao Sui hopes that as long as attention is diverted elsewhere, nobody will notice he is wearing this.
The dark-haired man holds a chain, noting they have no issues but worrying about the current level.
Wrapped in chains and pressed together, Zhao Sui wonders if this provocative shot will pass the review.
Qin Ye whispers to the blushing youth, asking if the little fox is finally planning to reward him.
Chibi Zhao Sui mentions the maximum favorability, and the shirtless man admits he truly likes the situation.
Online comments go wild over the man's impressive physique and the beauty of his long-haired female partner. Under the light of a full moon, music floats from the windows of a towering, regal palace. Inside the lavishly decorated hall, a white grand piano sits ready as the formal evening event begins. Guests in elegant gowns gather in the ballroom, filling the air with the sound of quiet conversation.
Wearing a sophisticated white suit, Zhao Sui enters the banquet and observes the many familiar guests present.
The youth spots Qin Ye in the crowd, whispering the man's name as he watches from a distance.
In a flashback, Zhao Sui asks Qin Ye to help him with a stuck zipper on his dress.
The man's hand rests firmly against the youth's waist as he reaches for the broken dress fastener.
The youth asks if he is finished yet, but the man playfully complains that he is too slow.
Abandoned by the man, the fuming youth complains that the man walked away and left him behind.
Walking across the hall, Zhao Sui is determined to find the man and finally settle this matter.
The youth suddenly bumps into someone, looking up in surprise as a man appears in front of him.
Yan Wen catches the youth's arm, asking if he is okay while calling him senior with a smile.
The pink-haired junior gives a dazzling, friendly look that fills the space with an aura of pure warmth.
He maintains a firm grip on the youth's wrist, pulling him closer as the banquet music continues playing.
Flustered by the sudden contact, Zhao Sui asks the junior if he was injured during their accidental collision.
Zhao Sui reflects on the invisible nature of the embrace, noting only players can call out these moments. With eyes glowing red, Yan Wen mentions the last opportunity while Zhao Sui suggests joining the banquet.
A powerful internal thought bubble appears, declaring an absolute and desperate need for tonight's mission's success.
A woman addresses the guests at the appreciation party, encouraging everyone to enjoy the night's festive atmosphere.
Kui Yun Shuang approaches the youth, asking how long he has been hiding in this part of the room.
She mentions the earlier advertisement and suggests that the two of them should collaborate in the future. Zhao Sui enjoys the NPC's company, worrying he must replay the game to work with her again.
Yan Wen notes that their relationship is quite good while watching the youth talk to the other woman.
A chibi creature reflects on how that person always looks for them privately, which is quite nice.
The chibi fox hears a voice promising to help him escape the game tonight, which improves his mood.
Zhao Sui reminds himself that he still needs to complete the mission with An Wen.
He asks Kui Yun Shuang for An Wen's location, and she says he's on the balcony.
Calling out for An Wen, the fox-eared youth cautiously navigates a dark palace corridor.
Zhao Sui wonders if An Wen is truly there as he stares into the deep shadows. A man with glowing red eyes watches the youth from the darkness with a faint smile.
Sensing an unsettling presence, Zhao Sui decides he should look for his target somewhere else.
A hand suddenly grabs the youth's wrist from the shadows, making him gasp in surprise.
The assailant covers Zhao Sui's mouth, cutting off his voice as he is pulled back.
Pressed against the dark-haired man's chest, the youth notes that his captor is incredibly strong. As they move together, the youth questions if the man truly intends to capture him.
President Qin asks why he is still here if he is so afraid of the dark.
Chibi Zhao Sui aggressively hits the man's head, accusing him of being a teasing fool. The fox-eared youth makes a quick exit, moving from the balcony back toward the way.
President Qin stares down in silence, his expression unreadable as he watches the youth leave.
The dark-haired man watches from the doorway as a tiny chibi creature runs away quickly.
The scene shows the feet of various guests moving through the hallway during the banquet.
Moonlight filters through the palace's grand arches, illuminating a silent and elegant balcony at night.
Zhao Sui asks why the man is always around, wondering if he is a rogue player.
Looking at his collar, the youth wonders if the man has escaped the game's script.
He clutches his head in confusion, questioning how there could possibly be two players here.
The youth reflects on An Wen's unusually high level of self-awareness throughout their recent interactions.
Zhao Sui looks at the man and simply states that life is precious after all.
He asks if someone would really risk everything, including their own life, for another person.
President Qin listens intently to the youth's question, his expression remaining calm and thoughtful.
Touching the youth's face, the man says one would risk everything for someone truly important. He questions the meaning of life and death, remarking that life is simply too long. Qin admits he would rather cherish every second by his side than live in daily agony. He vows to spend every minute by his side, disregarding whether he lives or dies. Flashbacks show 100% favorability heart and the two of them sharing a kiss.
Zhao Sui's mind is filled with shock as he repeatedly tells himself this can't be real.
He insists it can't be him and tells the man to never appear before him again. The youth remembers the man feeding him and calling him a precious little fox earlier.
The dark-haired man smiles warmly, remarking that the youth truly does look like a fox.
Zhao Sui looks at the man and asks who exactly is supposed to be important.
The youth grabs the man's suit lapels with a determined and slightly desperate grip.
He pulls the dark-haired man close, looking for answers in his deep and steady gaze.
President Qin tells the youth to answer him as they stand in a tense standoff.
The man stares intensely, asking the youth who he really is beneath his current role. A close-up reveals the man's eyes narrowing slightly as he waits for a truthful response.
He asks if his little fox already figured it out, catching the youth off guard.
The dark-haired chibi mutters that it is impossible while the youth's face turns a bright red.
Chibi Zhao Sui asks what he is talking about while a system mute alert appears.
Emergency mode is activated as the system prepares to adjust for a 60-second countdown.
The youth steps on the man's foot, prompting a question about his continued tricks.
A voice calls out "Senior," breaking the heavy silence between the two men on the balcony.
An Wen appears with a bright smile, greeting the youth he was searching for earlier.
He acknowledges the president's presence before stating he has something to say to his senior.
President Cheng glares coldly at the intruder, clearly annoyed by the interruption to their talk.
Zhao Sui remains silent and confused as the two men exchange a very tense look.
An Wen whispers a challenge to Qin before announcing his intent to confess to Senior.
Zhao Sui's head hurts as system boxes display an external inspection and code-checking progress.
The dark-haired man worries that system adjustments are pushing him out and turning him back.
Cascading digital code obscures a blurry figure as he wonders why this keeps happening.
A thought bubble declares that he simply cannot continue amidst the chaotic digital noise. The scene glitches with a loud sound as Zhao Sui closes his eyes against the interference. Zhao Sui observes the dark-haired man, confused by his sudden stillness and strange behavior.
The youth notices a change in the man's gaze, questioning if he saw correctly. An Wen wears a subtle, knowing smile while the silence between the three men grows.
Zhao Sui realizes this person isn't Qin Ye, reflecting on all his strange previous actions.
Zhao Sui concludes that the man is a player, recalling intimate moments they shared previously. Seeking an opportunity, Zhao Sui asks An Wen and Qin Yi what they are discussing. An Wen looks back with a soft expression, his eyes fixed intently on his senior.
An Wen pulls Zhao Sui close, stating he has always wanted to tell him something.
Zhao Sui senses a hidden mission arrival as the atmosphere between them shifts significantly.
A romantic vision of Qin Ye leaning over Zhao Sui on a bed of roses.
An Wen's gloved hand firmly grasps Zhao Sui's wrist, drawing him into a close embrace.
An Wen asks if Senior knew he liked him, making Zhao Sui feel incredibly tense.
A sharp sound rings out as An Wen's gaze intensifies during the sudden confession. A mission notification confirms the activation of a confession task with a favorability reward.
An Wen continues to hold Zhao Sui's hand, waiting for a response to his declaration. The pink-haired junior gives a faint, enigmatic smile while his red eyes glow.
Zhao Sui notices An Wen touching a glowing blue bracelet, wondering what it represents.
Zhao Sui panics, warning the man not to touch what only players can remove.
The youth wonders if the NPC is able to see the glowing mission interface.
Zhao Sui is nervous about the confession, but distracted by the glowing bracelet.
Zhao Sui realizes that while NPCs cannot see the interface, they see the bracelet.
An Wen admires the pretty bracelet and asks to see it, prompting Zhao Sui to hide.
Zhao Sui worries that allowing an NPC to see the bracelet might be reckless.
An Wen sighs, assuming his mission is hopeless, but Zhao Sui urgently tells him to wait.
A chibi Zhao Sui panics, determined not to mess up the mission near its success.
Zhao Sui reasons that the item should only affect players, making it safe to show.
Zhao Sui offers to take off the bracelet for An Wen, who responds with a smile.
Shadowy vines wrap around Zhao Sui as he realizes the mission is finally ending.
The glowing bracelet is touched as Zhao Sui's eye reflects the current moment's intensity.
Wen stares ahead with a neutral expression while the surrounding environment remains silent.
Qinye demands to know who Zhao Sui is confessing to, his expression turning dark.
Wen claims their engagement ended long ago, so his pursuit is fair.
Zhao Sui panics as he realizes the script cannot be undone, begging for silence.
Qinye confirms their engagement while Zhao Sui screams internally about the irreversible game script.
The youth fears he is doomed as he worries about how Wen will react.
Wen maintains that his pursuit of Senior is independent of any past connection to Qin.
Zhao Sui wonders how the junior knows about the engagement, but is relieved he doesn't care.
The three men stand together in shock as reality settles over the balcony.
Zhao Sui reflects on his goal to finish the mission, not break an engagement.
Wen smiles, admitting that everything has felt fresh since he met Mr. Qin.
Zhao Sui tells the junior to forget it while smiling and holding his gloved hand.
Qinye watches the pair, deciding that there is an even better target here.
A heart showing 65% favorability appears over Wen, giving Zhao Sui a bad feeling.
Wen wonders if it would be a pity for the game to end now. Zhao Sui stares in shock as favorability rises, wondering how the man could do this.
Wen admits he liked Senior while his favorability heart drops significantly to 40.
The junior questions their relationship after witnessing Zhao Sui's connection with Qin Yi, losing more favorability.
Disappointment clouds Wen's expression as his favorability heart plummets into a negative value.
A system notification alerts the player that favorability points are technically unable to drop below 0.
Looking cold and distant, Wen expresses deep disappointment in his senior during this tense moment.
The glowing system interface displays an error message regarding the target's current negative favorability status.
Shock fills Zhao Sui's eyes as he realizes his recent actions have caused a major setback.
Determined not to let the mission fail, Zhao Sui watches his junior walk away in silence.
Following closely behind, the youth refuses to allow their connection to end on such a note.
Qinye blocks Wen's path, leading to a sharp demand for him to move aside.
The president questions the junior's true motivations regarding his pursuit of the fox-eared youth.
Tensions flare as Zhao Sui pushes past the black-haired man, demanding he stay out of it.
Panic sets in as the youth notices both his system interface and bracelet have suddenly vanished.
As Zhao Sui tries to follow Wen, Qinye restrains him and begs him to stay. Anger flares in the youth's gaze as he reacts to the man's continued interference and restraint.
Facing the president directly, Zhao Sui demands to know exactly what the man wants from him.
Frustration grows as the youth reflects on how close he was to success before this disruption.
Surrounded by digital failure notifications, Zhao Sui contemplates restarting the game after this catastrophic mission outcome.
Qinye maintains a firm grip on the youth's wrist, refusing to let him walk away.
The dark-haired man demands that Zhao Sui stop liking Wen and choose him instead. Zhao Sui questions if a change in heart would truly provide him an escape from this game.
Firmly rejecting the proposal, the youth declares that he will only ever care for his junior.
Rain begins to pour as the two men stand in a heavy silence on the balcony.
Qinye questions his own shortcomings while Zhao Sui concludes the man simply doesn't understand his feelings.
Pulling his hand away, the youth prepares to deliver a harsh explanation for his intense rejection.
Zhao Sui lists everything he finds disgusting about the man, starting with their unwanted, lingering engagement.
The youth's words become increasingly cruel as he confesses to hating the man's voice and existence.
A wide shot shows the pair standing apart in the rain, the atmosphere heavy with resentment.
Zhao Sui begs the man to stop interfering and to disappear from his world once and for all.
Distressed and exhausted, the youth stares forward as the weight of his own words settles him.
Momentary confusion strikes as Zhao Sui questions the harshness of the things he just said aloud.
A faint, pained smile touches Qinye's lips as he accepts the youth's deep-seated hatred. The black-haired man acknowledges that his presence causes nothing but discomfort for the one he wants.
Memories of past kindness flash by as the man realizes his hopes were merely a delusion.
Retreating, Qinye tells the youth to go home and offers to arrange a driver.
The dark-haired man turns his back, confirming that he will have someone see the youth home.
Zhao Sui stands alone as the man walks away, disappearing into the shadows of the palace. Doubt creeps in as the youth wonders if this outcome aligns with the game's original script. Overwhelmed by conflicting emotions, Zhao Sui crouches down and clutches his head in the heavy rain.
Kneeling on the ground, the youth concludes that he is a terrible person for his cruelty. Thunder and rain lash against the grand palace towers as the night grows even more somber.
A door creaks open as the wet and weary youth finally returns to his living quarters.
An older man with fox ears looks up from his newspaper, appearing quite irritated by the interruption.
The elderly man continues his remark while watching the silent youth pass by him in a daze.
Zhao Sui ignores the onlookers and slowly climbs the grand staircase to seek solitude in his room.
The butler and waiter exchange a puzzled look, worried by the youth's uncharacteristically somber behavior.
Reaching his room, Zhao Sui leans against the door, finally alone with his growing inner turmoil.
His hands tremble as he struggles to process the chaotic events and feelings from the balcony.
Frantic, the youth calls out to the system, demanding it stop hiding and provide some answers.
Relief at the system's return turns to dread as a red warning light fills his vision. A cascade of red arrow windows signifies a complete system failure as favorability plummets dangerously.
Zhao Sui panics because his glowing blue bracelet suddenly vanishes from his wrist without warning.
Zhao Sui questions his confusing circumstances while kneeling alone on the cold, ornate floor. A hand knocks firmly on the door, interrupting the youth's frantic internal monologue.
Silence reigns as someone waits outside the room, their presence marked only by heavy shadows.
The door slowly creaks open, revealing a glimpse into the youth's dimly lit bedroom.
A hand reaches out to flip a switch, flooding the dark room with bright light.
Zhao Sui lies in bed looking physically drained and sweating under the weight of exhaustion.
A man with long red hair and fox ears stands over the bed looking concerned. The red-haired man pulls a blanket over the resting youth to keep him warm.
The man advises the youth to dry his hair and change clothes to avoid sickness.
A close-up reveals Zhao Sui's eye filled with tears as he struggles with his emotions.
Zhao Sui tells the man to leave him alone, reflecting on his own perceived impending death. The long-haired man questions the youth's strange statement while observing his fragile state.
The red-haired man offers a bowl of warm liquid to the youth resting in bed.
Zhao Sui sarcastically asks the man if he is finally planning to poison him out of boredom.
A chibi Zhao Sui expresses his extreme annoyance at the man's persistent and unwanted care.
The man demands that the youth speak properly and explain his erratic behavior tonight.
Zhao Sui complains about the bitterness of the medicine while the long-haired man remains patient.
The red-haired man sits nearby and asks the youth if he would like some cake.
Zhao Sui reflects on how the man used to forbid eating late at night.
The youth wonders if the system is providing some form of final comfort before he dies.
The man explains he bought the coral cake after work because the youth wanted it.
The focus shifts to a box clearly labeled as containing a delicious coral cake. Zhao Sui realizes the man went out of his way to get the special treat.
The man holds out a plate with a strawberry dessert, noticing it looks slightly damaged.
The red-haired man feeds a bite of the sweet cake to the emotional youth.
Zhao Sui experiences the sweetness of the cake, finally understanding the flavor he once craved.
The long-haired man gently wipes the youth's face while offering a soft, comforting smile. A close-up shows the youth finishing the dessert as his eyes reflect a quiet sadness.
Memories of a bakery and a bustling city street highlight a past sense of regret.
The youth looks at the remaining dessert, feeling a strange sense of finality and peace.
Zhao Sui accepts the possible end of the game, finding solace in resolving one regret.
A vision of a dark-haired man appears as the youth expresses a wish to see someone.
The red-haired man promises to buy more cake tomorrow if the youth rests now.
Zhao Sui stares in shock as the promise of tomorrow gives him a reason to hope.
Zhao Sui sits up quickly, realizing he still has a month left to change everything.
The youth tells the man it is late and instructs him to finally go home.
The red-haired man walks away while a mysterious dark figure watches him from the shadows.
A woman with red hair and fox ears greets the youth warmly after her trip.
The woman cries over the youth being wet, blaming the father for his perceived negligence.
A man with short brown hair and fox ears stands with the red-haired family.
Zhao Sui wonders if the world is collapsing as new characters appear and the system breaks.
A romantic memory of a dark-haired man leaning over the youth fills the screen.
The scene shifts to a bright, high-angle view of a modern city and its traffic.
A woman walks through a corporate lobby toward a set of security turnstiles.
A staff member informs a visitor they cannot enter without a pass or an appointment. The youth removes his mask, and the staff member recognizes him as teacher Zhao Sui. The receptionist explains his contract was terminated months ago, making his presence here invalid.
Zhao Sui stands in complete disbelief, questioning how his employment could have been terminated.
Zhao Sui asks the receptionist to call the manager regarding his terminated contract.
Panic and desperation are clear in the youth's eyes as his situation worsens. Visual glitches intensify as Zhao Sui wonders why his manager's name sounds so familiar.
A man in a tailored suit approaches and addresses the youth as Mr. Zhao Sui.
The man identifies himself as Director Chin's assistant and asks for the clothes.
The assistant identifies himself as the personal assistant to Director Chin with a serious expression.
Zhao Sui is bewildered, remembering a different person who previously held this assistant role. Taking the bag, the assistant curtly requests that the youth leave the premises immediately.
Snatching the bag back, Zhao Sui demands an explanation for Chin Yi's personal absence.
The assistant reveals that Director Chin has agreed to the proposal to cancel the engagement.
Shock freezes the youth's movements as his grip on the shopping bag slackens.
Silence follows as the assistant turns his back and walks away from the youth.
A low-angle shot captures the man's steady footsteps moving away on the polished floor.
Zhao Sui calls out the name Yi Wen as a pale-haired man appears.
Holding a book, the pale-haired man comments on how cold the recent exchange was.
Yi Wen asks Zhao Sui why he is there as he walks closer across the floor.
Seeing a 0 favorability rating, the youth wonders if the game is still continuing. A close-up reveals the pale-haired man's glowing pink eyes, devoid of any warmth.
Yi Wen flashes a chilling smile, comparing himself to a senior in a mocking tone.
Confused, Zhao Sui questions if one NPC can truly like another NPC in this world.
Surrounded by dark thorns, Yi Wen declares that he has no lingering feelings left. The youth stares in horror as heart-shaped eyes confirm a score of 0%.
Cracks spread across the ground as Zhao Sui realizes the game world is shattering.
A system window announces that the target character Yi Wen has officially failed. A red game over screen appears as the mission reaches a catastrophic conclusion. A romantic memory of Qin Ye leaning over the youth fills the screen.
The game over message persists as the youth is consumed by the digital darkness.
Falling into a void, Zhao Sui screams in terror, refusing to accept his death.
A glitching prompt appears with strange writing that the panicked youth cannot understand.
Choosing to pick yes, a reboot command is initiated with a sharp digital sound.
The entire world dissolves into a blue wireframe as a massive reorganization process begins.
System notifications in Chinese confirm that data and player information loading are complete.
A blue interface window announces that player Zhao Sui has entered the world again.
The youth's blue eye reflects the shifting light of a new, reset reality.
Stumbling onto his feet, Zhao Sui finds himself suddenly standing in a different location.
The scene shifts to a luxurious, brightly lit palace interior that looks incredibly familiar.
Looking around in disbelief, the youth realizes this is where the game first started.
A close-up of the youth's eye captures his shock as the environment fully materializes. The system presents a lineup of silhouetted targets and requests the player make a choice.
Hope flickers in Zhao Sui's expression as he contemplates the possibility of a restart.
Frustration mounts as a red window declares that the character is currently locked.
A chibi version of the youth awkwardly laughs off the failure of his selection.
Zhao Sui looks toward the legs of a man in a blue suit nearby.
Facing Qin Yi in this reset world, the youth whispers the man Quam.
A romantic vision appears as the youth calculates if choosing this man offers escape.
Hesitating, the youth stares at his hand, weighing the consequences of this decision.
Zhao Sui remembers his past cruelty and realizes the difficulty of winning back this heart.
Panic ensues when the system indicates that all potential characters are currently unavailable.
Desperate and crying out, the youth lunges forward and tightly hugs the dark-haired man.
A close-up of Zhao Sui's face shows his absolute determination to reclaim what he lost.
Zhao Sui clings desperately to Qin Ye as the world stabilizes into a new reality.
Looking up at the black-haired man, the youth wonders if his target remembers their past. The dark-haired man grunts in annoyance while pulling the youth's arms off his tailored suit. Despite the rejection, a system notification confirms that the target character was selected successfully.
Fragments of digital data rain down around the pair as the palace interior fully resets.
A shutdown countdown appearing before Zhao Sui reveals he only has 28 days left to succeed.
Overwhelmed by the pressure, the orange-haired youth tightly shuts his eyes to collect his thoughts.
Zhao Sui recognizes the current scene as a familiar opening segment from his first playthrough.
Facing the darkness of the reset, the youth vows to start the game properly this time. Light floods his vision as the orange-haired youth wakes up in a soft, luxurious bed. Confused by his surroundings, the fox-eared youth lets out a startled gasp as he looks around. Sitting up in the massive, ornate bed, the youth questions if he is in his room. Checking his glowing blue bracelet, Zhao Sui realizes he has been sent back to April 18th.
The youth panics upon feeling an arm wrapped around his waist, mistakenly thinking it is Qin Yi. Dressed in a school uniform, Zhao Sui heads out while the red-haired man reads a newspaper nearby.
Excited to see Qin Ye, the youth is stopped when the red-haired man forbids him from going.
Zhao Sui looks confused while reminding the older man that he and Qin Ye are already engaged.
Waving a cheerful goodbye, the youth sprints out the palace doors to catch his target character.
The scene shifts to the modern corporate entrance of the company belonging to director Qin Ye. Standing in the lobby, the fox-eared youth contemplates leaving the game the moment he sees him.
A chibi Zhao Sui imagines the romantic benefits of dating someone who looks like his real-world crush.
A low-angle shot captures the steady approach of director Qin Ye walking through the corporate hall.
Spotting the man in the blue suit, the youth stands straight while his nerves begin to fray.
Zhao Sui reassures himself that the reset means Qin Ye has no memories of the previous failure. The youth calls out the man's name as Qin Ye stops and looks back with indifference.
Desperate for attention, the fox-eared youth reaches out and firmly grabs onto the man's expensive sleeve.
Zhao Sui is surprised to see the original assistant back at the dark-haired director's side again.
Turning his back, the director continues walking away as the youth frantically begs him to wait. Following closely behind, the youth shouts for the man's attention as they move through the lobby.
Catching up, Zhao Sui asks the director why he is pretending not to see his own fiancée.
The man tries to shake off the youth's grip, but Zhao Sui refuses to let him go.
Noticing a ring on the man's finger, the youth asks if it is their engagement ring.
Inspecting their hands, Zhao Sui realizes with growing dread that his own engagement ring is missing.
The dark-haired man speaks the youth's name with a cold, distant expression that lacks any warmth.
Chin-ye bluntly tells the youth to stop pestering him since the engagement has been broken off. Shaking with nerves, Zhao Sui tries to laugh it off and tells the man to stop joking. A chilling close-up of Chin-ye's eyes reveals golden pupils that pierce through the youth's facade.
Offering a curt apology, the director coldly brushes the youth's hand away and fixes his sleeve.
Chin-ye walks away while expressing his dislike for the youth, leaving behind a 0% heart.
Stunned, Zhao Sui wonders why there is no affection value appearing for his main target character.
The youth stands motionless in the lobby, watching his chosen target walk through the security gates.
A blue system window appears, offering a backstory summary to the confused and desperate fox-eared youth.
Silhouettes reveal that Zhao Sui used family influence to force an engagement on an unwilling Chin-ye.
The system explains that choosing Chin-ye as a target changes the opening of the game script.
An angry Chibi Zhao Sui rants about the unfairness of the game dumping him so early.
Deep in thought, the youth wonders about the identity of the person Chin-ye actually loves.
An elevator chime announces that the pair has arrived on the 31st floor of the building.
The assistant promises to have security block Zhao Sui from entering the office floors next time. Checking the schedule, the assistant mentions that Chin-ye cleared his day for a visitor named Song.
Chin-ye repeats the name of the visitor with a look of intense interest and deep contemplation. Steady footsteps echo as Zhao Sui follows the director through the corporate office hallway.
The youth pulls on the director's tie, reminding him of their long history together. Zhao Sui searches the man's eyes, asking if he has truly forgotten their past connection.
A bittersweet memory of school days surfaces, recalling a time of radiant, youthful first love. Staring into space, the fox-eared youth reflects on those once bright and radiant feelings.
A darker memory reveals the painful and intimate reality of a first love gone wrong.
The vision of their hidden private moments continues to haunt the youth's present thoughts. In the pouring rain, the memory of a deep and desperate embrace lingers painfully.
He realizes that some experiences are impossible to forget, no matter how much time passes.
Stepping between them, Zhao Sui stops the pink-haired newcomer from approaching his target character.
A character introduction identifies Shuang Shizi, a famous schoolmate rumored to have loved Chin-ye.
Shocked by the revelation, Zhao Sui wonders if this man previously rejected the director's feelings. The youth looks up in confusion as he senses a shift in the director's behavior.
The dark-haired man gazes down coldly, questioning why the youth is staring so intensely.
Zhao Sui feels a surge of jealousy, questioning why the director is acting so protective.
Dismissing him completely, the director coldly orders the youth to leave his presence immediately.
Desperate for a sign of care, the youth asks if he is truly unwanted here. Leaning in close, the director confirms his utter lack of interest in seeing the youth.
The director walks away, leaving Zhao Sui to shout about their unfinished business and script.
Watching them, Shuang Shiqi finds the director's possessive display toward the youth highly amusing.
The pink-haired man ponders the contradiction between the director's words and his protective actions. Footsteps signal a cold departure as the interaction in the lobby comes to an end.
The director repeats his dismissal while the youth rants about the difficulty of gaining favor.
Frustration boils over as Zhao Sui realizes how difficult his mission has become after resetting.
Putting on a brave face, the youth vows to return and try again the following day.
A grumpy Chibi Zhao Sui insults the director's taste for showing interest in someone else.
Shuang Shizi looks on with a knowing expression, sensing the tension in the room. The pink-haired author prepares to follow the director, leaving the frustrated youth behind.
The scene shifts from the modern office back to the luxury of the palace interior.
Lying face down on a sofa, Zhao Sui despairs over the lack of visible affection points.
A system warning clarifies that the target currently feels absolutely no affection toward the player.
An angry Chibi Zhao Sui questions why breaking an engagement led to such extreme hatred.
He recalls the director's past pleas to be left alone, realizing the depth of his resentment.
Memories of the director demanding the youth vanish from his life fill the dark room.
Zhao Sui wonders if the director has somehow retained memories of the previous world's tragic end.
Reflecting on his past mistakes, the youth admits he was blinded by his own anger.
A notification from a manager arrives, summoning Zhao Sui to the office for a new script.
Small gains in intimacy and gold appear, though the youth finds the system incredibly stingy.
With a determined smirk, Zhao Sui decides to use the meeting as a second chance.
In the corporate hallway, the director requests a meeting transcript before his lunch break begins.
President Chin-ye maintains a stern and professional focus as he prepares for his next appointment.
An assistant enters the office, informing the president that Zhao Sui has arrived for a meeting.
Shuang Shizi sits comfortably in the office, reminding them of a prior agreement made yesterday. The director dismisses his assistant to speak privately with his visitors as tension fills the room. A door clicks shut as the director asks his uninvited guests the reason for their presence. Zhao Sui presents a wrapped box, claiming he lovingly prepared a homemade lunch for the director. The neatly wrapped gift sits between them, representing the youth's latest attempt to gain favor. While the youth offers daily meals, his thoughts reveal he secretly ordered the food instead. The director bluntly rejects the offering, stating clearly that he has no interest in the lunch. A close-up of the youth's eye reveals his growing sadness at the repeated cold rejections.
The fox-eared youth leans in close while reaching out toward the dark-haired director.
The youth challenges the man's dismissal, asking how he can know without looking first.
A silent, brooding expression remains on the dark-haired man's face as the youth speaks. The man's golden reptilian pupils narrow with a cold intensity that pierces through the youth.
Zhao Sui's bare hand makes contact with the director's as he continues his bold advances.
Looking up with a provocative smile, the youth asks the man if he likes Galuk. A detailed focus reveals the block lace choker and open neckline of the youth's attire.
The director pushes the youth away, questioning why he would dress so inappropriately for a company.
Chibi Zhao Sui wonders if the man's stern reaction is actually a hidden sign of jealousy.
The director remains motionless while the frustrated youth realizes his presence is not having an effect.
Zhao Sui asks for a follow-up meeting as the director indifferently leaves the decision to him.
A sudden look of shock crosses the youth's face as he processes the man's cold response.
The youth reveals his intention to shoot a new movie, catching the director's sudden attention. The director looks back with a curious expression, questioning the youth's cryptic announcement about his plans. Leaving the office, the youth promises to return while the manager continues to seek his attention.
The heavy office door clicks shut, marking the end of their tense and frustrating encounter. Massaging his temples, the director appears troubled and deeply contemplative after the youth's sudden departure.
Entering the room, the pink-haired author asks if there was just a visitor in the office.
The author asks if the director has reviewed the new script recently signed by the company.
The pink-haired man expresses his firm belief that Zhao Sui is unsuitable for his character's role. Seeking confirmation, the author leans over the desk and asks for the director's personal opinion.
The director remains silent as the author waits for a response regarding the casting of Zhao Sui.
The pink-haired man criticizes the youth's acting style, describing it as both stiff and overly exaggerated. The author contemplates the youth's potential performance if he were to take the third lead role.
Expressing his strong dislike for nepotism, the author maintains that the youth is simply not qualified.
The pink-haired man questions why the director would choose Zhao Sui despite his clear lack of qualifications. The director disclaims responsibility for casting, but notes that the youth must possess a special quality. A close-up of the author's purple eyes shows a mix of suspicion and deep curiosity. The author observes that the director's relationship with the youth has grown significantly closer recently. A rapid heartbeat echoes through the room as the director struggles with intense and conflicting emotions.
Dark, pulsating energy surrounds the director's internal thoughts as he battles a sudden urge.
Looking concerned, the pink-haired author calls out to the director to snap him out of it.
The dark-haired man whispers the youth's name under his breath with a look of dawning realization.
The director tells the author that handling the casting situation is entirely up to his discretion.
Chin Ye smiles faintly, reassuring the author that his final decision is what truly matters most.
Looking puzzled, the pink-haired author senses a fundamental change in the director's character and behavior. The author suggests a competitive audition between Zhao Sui and his own preferred candidate for the role.
Surrounding himself with dark roses, the author expresses confidence that the youth won't disappoint the director.
The scene shifts to an empty boardroom as the mission parameters undergo a significant change. Despairing over a recurring bug, the youth rants about being used as free labor for testing. A frantic colleague bursts into the room with urgent news that the situation has turned bad. The colleague reveals that Zhao Sui's role is being recast, forcing a change in the mission.
The manager explains that the author is dissatisfied and has decided to hold open auditions instead.
Silhouettes explain that the author is a prestigious figure with numerous award-winning and nominated works. Trophies represent the massive investment the company made to secure the high-value script from the author.
The manager panics because their initial success was only due to connections, not actual acting merit.
A close-up of the youth's eye reveals his confusion about the nature of these alleged connections. The red-haired man, revealed as the biggest investor, remains silent while reviewing a document.
A sudden realization strikes the youth, indicated by a spark of inspiration and a clever idea. Chibi Zhao Sui reflects on the investor's true nature, recognizing a sharp tongue but soft heart.
Zhao Sui tells his manager the script suits him well, surprising the man with his passion.
The manager signs Zhao Sui up for classes, telling him to study and stay away for now. Looking at the office door, the fox-eared youth insists that he still needs to visit someone. A serene background signals the focus shifting back toward the director, Chin Ye, and his upcoming schedule.
Zhao Sui visits the office daily with gifts, promising the director he will return again tomorrow. Embracing the man from behind, the youth asks if he can bring another offering the following day.
Fragments of the office setting scatter as the youth's persistent promise of returning tomorrow echoes through time.
Silence fills the director's office as President Chin Ye sits alone at his desk in deep contemplation.
Chin Ye realizes the youth is over an hour late today compared to his usual arrival time. A voice from behind the heavy office door grants permission for someone to enter the room immediately. An assistant informs President Qin that the meeting is starting, and the man acknowledges the update coldly. The director instructs his assistant to have any late visitors wait for him inside the office room. Looking troubled and gloomy, the dark-haired man prepares himself to head into the scheduled corporate meeting.
An assistant mentions that teacher Zhao Sui is currently performing a screen test on the second floor.
Shocked by the news, the director questions why the screen test is happening on this specific day.
Chibi Chin-ye notices the weather clearing, distracted by thoughts of the youth's unexpected audition.
Voices call out in the hallway as the scene shifts toward the bustling audition room for the script.
Chibi Jasui rants to his manager about the screenwriter being the man he dislikes so much. The youth complains that the pen name on the script prevented him from identifying the pink-haired author. When asked about a grudge, Chibi Jasui claims his feelings toward the writer are far worse.
Applause follows a performance while the fox-eared youth stands at the door, ready to face his rival.
A judge praises a candidate's performance before asking Teacher Song for his expert professional opinion.
Teacher Song states that something is lacking because the character Lin Chuan was never expected or loved.
Song Shichi critiques the actor's performance for being surface level and failing to reach the audience's heart with fear.
A colleague suggests calling Zhao Sui in to try, but the manager looks worried for his talent.
The author bluntly tells them to forget it and not waste time on the unqualified youth.
Song Shichi claims someone born into wealth like Zhao Sui could never understand a character like Lin Chuan.
Grabbing the author with sudden intensity, the youth asks exactly what it is he cannot pull off.
Stunned by the youth's dark and piercing presence, Song Shichi stares into his glowing blue eyes.
Onlookers panic, begging Zhao Sui to release Teacher Song and try to discuss the matter more calmly.
The youth lets go, leaving the author stumbling back as the room's atmosphere remains heavy and tense.
Zhao Sui points at the author, questioning if fear has ever truly reached the bottom of his heart.
Looking shaken, Song Shichi wonders if the youth's frightening display of emotion was merely a calculated performance. Reverting to a cheerful smile, Zhao Sui asks if he is finally qualified to begin his audition.
Wiping sweat from his brow, the judge nervously agrees to let the youth proceed with the screen test.
A close-up of a professional camera lens captures the start of the youth's highly anticipated audition.
Closing his eyes, Zhao Sui takes a deep breath and prepares to inhabit the character of Lin Chuan.
The youth opens his eyes, immediately displaying a look of profound sorrow and intense, raw vulnerability.
Song Shichi is visibly shocked, questioning when the youth's acting skills could have possibly become so refined.
The author observes that the youth has transformed himself completely with just a single glance and movement.
Standing alone in the middle of the room, the youth projects an overwhelming sense of isolation and despair.
Zhao Sui realizes Song Shichi was correct that he could never act as his pampered former self would.
Zhao Sui reflects that the life of a pampered young master from the game is no longer his.
A visceral memory of being choked surfaces as the youth channels his genuine trauma from a past world.
Zhao Sui describes himself as an ant clinging to life and struggling to survive as his true identity.
The youth thinks that he is not acting, but instead showing the version of himself he used to be.
Staring at his reflection, Zhao Sui admits he is simply showing the old, authentic version of himself today. Chin-ye stands alone in a dark room, watching the live audition broadcast on a large screen.
The director reaches out toward the glowing screen, his hand nearing the image of the crying youth.
A close-up of Chin-ye's eye reveals his golden pupils narrowing as he watches the powerful performance.
Complaining about pain, the youth suggests that only a kiss can make him feel better now.
An encouraging feedback bubble notes that the performance was not bad amidst a floral background.
A judge expresses surprise at Zhao Sui's improved acting, noting that there should be no problems.
Entering the room, the newcomer asks if he missed any of the brilliant performances happening today.
Zhao Sui is stunned to see a white-haired man with cat ears suddenly appearing at the audition. The white-haired senior is addressed by the youth, looking elegant and somewhat mysterious in his attire.
Yan Wen celebrates their reunion while the fox-eared youth demands that he stay far away. Looking perplexed, the white-haired senior reacts with a question mark to the youth's immediate hostility. Zhao Sui worries about the senior's arrival, questioning if the man has finally found him.
A strategy system screen warns that unselected targets will become NPCs without any future storylines.
A voice recognizes the newcomer, confirming his presence as the scene shifts toward the stage lights.
Chibis discuss if Yan Wen is the lead while suggesting one more run to finalize Zhao Sui's casting.
Song Shichi explains that the character Lin Chuan has a vital emotional arc within the new script. The author suggests testing a scene where the character takes medicine to show repressed tension.
Teacher Song tells Zhao Sui he can choose any acting partner since he is so talented. Panicking at the suggestion, the youth and a nearby colleague wonder what is happening.
Chibi Yan Wen offers to act with his junior if he needs someone for the screen test.
A suited hand blocks the door as the director announces his intention to perform the scene.
President Chin-ye arrives, shocking the room as people question why he is present for auditions.
The director looks serious and authoritative, preparing himself to act alongside the fox-eared youth.
Narrowed golden pupils signify the director's intense focus as he gazes toward the audition stage.
Yan Wen says he shouldn't be here, but Chin-ye insists on seeing the show he invested in.
Grabbing the director's shirt, Zhao Sui begs him not to cause trouble for his important role.
Chibi Zhao Sui worries that failing to get the role will prevent him from completing his mission. Chin Ye leans close, asking the youth if he has ever failed to give him what he wanted.
The youth stares back in silence, caught in the director's intense and overwhelming presence.
A hand is shown near a dark coat, marking a transition in the room's heavy atmosphere.
Sitting down with cold dignity, the director prepares to begin the improvised scene with the youth.
Zhao Sui watches the director, questioning exactly what kind of person he is dealing with.
Song Shi-si is surprised that the director is skipping rehearsals and starting the performance immediately.
The youth recognizes the director's specific movements, feeling they have happened thousands of times before.
A close-up of their different footwear highlights the physical proximity between the two performers.
Surrounded by light and floral elements, the two men share a moment of intense eye contact.
Commanding the youth to come closer, the director begins the scene with a cold, firm invitation.
Touching his bruise, the youth looks downward while feeling guilty under the director's heavy gaze.
A high-angle shot shows the two characters standing close together as the performance continues.
Physical contact between their legs emphasizes the intimate and tense nature of the current acting scene.
The director leans over the youth, stating it is too late for him to act obediently now.
Chin Ye demands to know who the youth fought with while Zhao Sui smiles and teases him.
A white screen with text announces that the official audition performance is now beginning.
The two men are shown acting out the scene together in a large, open studio space.
Zhao Sui looks over his shoulder toward the director, fully immersed in his character's complex emotions. A close-up at the director's eye captures his intense focus on the youth's impressive active. Reaching out, the director's hand touches the youth's hair as they continue their dramatic exchange.
Chin Ye asks if the youth injured himself for the role during the audition's emotional climax.
Feeling flustered, the youth wonders why the director keeps touching his neck during their performance.
The youth's tail wraps around the man's leg, and he notes that the sensation tickles.
A close-up reveals the director's golden, beast-like pupils as he remains fully in character. Acting fiercely, the director warns the youth not to return home while onlookers marvel at him.
Smirking, Zhao Sui asks if the man is truly angry or just feels sorry for him.
Chibi Chen Ye scolds the youth for getting hurt while Chibi Zhao Sui cries and promises never to go again.
Returning to the scene, the youth begs Big Brother not to ignore him while vowing never to leave again.
In a dreamlike atmosphere, the two performers share a moment of intense connection with hands held tight.
Looking stunned, the black-haired man questions why the youth suddenly addressed him with such a personal, intimate title.
Chin Ye smirks at the youth's bold acting choice, muttering that the fox-eared youth has finally won.
Reaching out to touch the youth's neck, the director agrees with the sentiment delivered during their powerful improvised scene.
Reverting to his usual self, Zhao Sui blushes and insists he was simply reciting his lines for the test. The youth's eyes reveal his inner confusion as he wonders what he has gotten himself into now.
Chin Ye tilts the youth's chin up as Zhao Sui wonders if a progress bar exists for his affection.
A system heart displays a low affection level, leaving a depressed Chibi Zhao Sui feeling completely unappealing and rejected.
A strategy guide screen reveals the specific affection gains for physical contact, though much of it remains locked.
Chibi Zhao Sui is delighted to see a high base affection value, realizing the man already likes him.
The two men lean closer, the air thick with unspoken tension as the scene draws to a close.
Their faces are inches apart, sharing a moment of profound intimacy within the crowded audition room. The Chibi youth suddenly pushes the man away, breaking the heavy spell over the entire room.
Zhao Sui sits on the floor while a judge expresses great satisfaction with the performance they just witnessed. Yan Wen smiles and admits he never expected the company president to be such a talented and convincing actor.
The white-haired senior teases the pair, claiming the performance was so real he suspected an actual secret relationship.
Song Shishi remains silent at the table, his expression unreadable while processing the intense scene.
The author confirms Zhao Sui is perfect for the role of Lin Chuan and expects him on set next week.
A cheerful Chibi Catman congratulates the youth and expresses excitement for their upcoming collaboration on the production team.
Chin Ye prepares to leave for work, but Zhao Sui stops him, boldly asking to visit his home tonight.
Clinging to the man's hand, the youth repeats his request to come over, hoping for a more personal encounter.
Zhao Sui notices the affection level hasn't moved, wondering if the man needs to take the lead for progress. Pulling his hand away, fearing he was too forward, the youth quickly makes an excuse about needing to retrieve a forgotten lunchbox.
Zhao Sui suggests visiting to get the item, but Chin Ye offers to send an assistant to handle it.
The youth stares back, stunned and slightly frustrated by the man's cold and professional dismissal.
A slight smile plays on the director's lips as he enjoys the youth's visible annoyance.
The Chibi youth gives up and shoves the man toward the exit, telling him to just go back to work. Zhao Sui imagines seducing the man tonight, determined to conquer his heart and win the game.
Night falls over the city, shifting the scene to the quiet exterior of a modern building.
Standing outside with his phone, the youth prepares himself for a surprise visit to the black-haired man's house. Spotting a pair of shoes, the youth pauses, realizing someone else is already at the location.
Zhao Sui is shocked to find Sang Ziqi standing in the shadows, smoking a cigarette with a weary expression.
The pink-haired author gazes at a mysterious companion through a cloud of smoke, his purple eyes filled with hidden meaning. A dark-haired man reaches out toward the author, his intentions unclear in the quiet moment. The stranger leans in close, the distance shrinking as a new and dangerous tension arises. The dark-haired stranger questions why Song Si-chi is here, noting that the author doesn't even like President Chin-ye.
Holding his cigarette, the author scoffs and asks who exactly claimed that he had no feelings for the man.
The stranger accuses Song Si-chi of stringing Chin-ye along because of him, but the author claims the man provides what he wants.
The dark-haired stranger looks back with a cold, piercing gaze, asking what he could possibly offer the pink-haired author.
Calling him cold, the stranger insists he can also provide what the author wants while pinning him against the wall.
Chibi Zhao panics from his hiding spot, wondering if he is witnessing a scandalous plot twist in the game.
Footsteps echo as someone arrives at the modern house nestled under the dark night sky.
Zhao Sui greets Chin-ye at the door, urgently reporting that he witnessed Song Si-chi kissing another man.
The news catches Chin-ye off guard, his eyes widening in surprise at the scandalous revelation.
Narrowing his golden pupils, the man notes that, unlike others, his focus and affection are directed elsewhere entirely.
Chin-ye pulls the youth close and leans in, stating that he only ever shares kisses with him.
A heart progress bar shows the affection level rising, marking a positive turning point in their relationship.
Zhao Sui smiles contentedly, thinking his plan is perfect as the scene concludes.
A pair of formal black shoes strides purposefully up the stairs, signaling a departure.
The fox-eared youth greets Chin-ye, who coldly suggests discussing any big news tomorrow.
As the man turns away, Zhao Shui shouts that he saw Song Si-chi kissing another.
The black-haired man's footsteps halt abruptly upon hearing the youth's shocking revelation about the author. Zhao Sui smiles to himself, pleased that his strategy to pique the man's interest is working.
Chin-ye pauses, acknowledging the youth's presence with a brief, stoic reaction as he stands still.
Stunned by the man's lack of surprise, the youth asks if he already knew the news.
A close-up of the black-haired man's golden pupils reveals his intense, unwavering focus during the conversation.
The scene shifts to a professional studio environment where staff members move about their business.
A pink-haired, cat-eared woman asks the black-haired man why he has come down to this area.
Chin-ye explains he had something important to handle while the cat-eared woman accepts his presence.
The interior of a modern, brightly lit building reflects a shift toward a late-night atmosphere.
Chin-ye orders a driver to take the youth home, leaving Zhao Sui frustrated and confused.
A chibi driver named Uncle Wang physically carries the flailing chibi youth away from the area.
Angry at the man's cold dismissal, the chibi youth rants about how difficult men are.
Recovering his composure, the fox-eared youth smiles and offers a polite farewell until their next meeting.
Professional filming equipment and cameras are shown on a set, marking a transition in the story.
A colleague admires Zhao Sui, noting how well his role as the group leader suits him. The director announces that the lighting division is rechecking the room as the crew prepares.
Asked what he is staring at, Zhao Sui remarks that the current scene is truly amazing.
Looking toward the set, the youth's back is shown as he observes the busy filming environment.
A close-up of sneakers moving across the floor emphasizes the busy activity on the set.
A flashback begins with the sight of sneakers and socks, marking the first time they met.
Memories of a crowded party appear, showing the youth in various social and working situations.
A close-up reveals hands with a visible bruise, hinting at a past physical struggle.
The atmosphere turns dark as the youth encounters a woman during a tense past social event.
Standing among blurred figures at a formal gathering, the youth feels isolated in his past memories.
In a close-up of his eyes, the youth reflects that he still cannot leave his situation.
A pink-haired woman wonders what she is waiting for as she watches the crowd in silence.
A younger Chin-ye arrives on the stairs, announced as the young master of the house.
A close-up captures the striking and handsome features of the young man as he descends. Staring at the newcomer, the youth is immediately struck by his intense and profound beauty.
A woman introduces the black-haired man as his older brother and tells the youth to say hi.
The youth's eyes widen as a dark speech bubble commands him never to use that title.
An older man scolds Liang Ye, demanding an apology to his younger brother for his tone.
Clinging to the man, the woman dismisses the tension, claiming the children just aren't close yet.
Looking distressed, the woman claims she is being hated now because of the ongoing conflict.
The youth looks away with a troubled expression, caught in the middle of the family drama.
The black-haired man stares back with a cold, disgusted gaze, highlighting the deep rift.
The youth covers his eyes in frustration, reflecting on the name Liang Yi and his past.
Looking downward with a sad expression, the youth continues to dwell on his complicated childhood memories.
After being called mom, an angry woman slaps the youth and orders him to stop.
Reflecting on his tough life, the youth addresses the woman as auntie while fearing her.
The woman questions the youth's plan to win over Liang Ye, mocking his lack of progress.
The youth concludes that the man simply doesn't like him as their past gazes meet again.
Staff members whisper about the youth being an illegitimate child, further emphasizing his social isolation.
Servants withhold food from the youth, prioritizing dinner preparations for the favored young master instead.
A depressed chibi fox-eared youth sits alone, his stomach growling from hunger in his room.
The youth trembles near a door, exhausted by the rejection and mistreatment within the house. Overwhelmed by hunger, the youth takes a piece of food in the quiet room. Liang Ye catches the youth red-handed, accusing him of stealing once again in the mansion.
Panicked, the youth hides the food behind his back and quickly denies the accusation.
The man reveals the stolen bread by pulling his arm while the youth makes excuses. Tears fill his eyes as the youth pleads that he never intended to steal the food.
Liang Ye scoffs at the display, asking if the youth is acting pitiful once again. He questions how a woman from a lower background could reach such a high status.
Gazing at a portrait, the man wonders if the woman depicted is truly the youth's mother.
Liang Ye blames the youth's family for his mother's death, questioning their illegitimate nature.
Dismissing the youth's claims of a misunderstanding, the man roughly shoves him away in disgust.
The man declares the house never belonged to his mother and demands he stop lying.
Liang Ye orders the youth to stop dreaming and never to steal from him again.
Sunlight bathes the modern school campus, shifting the scene to a typical academic school day.
Students walk toward the school entrance while a mysterious figure watches from the side. Footsteps echo on the pavement as various students move through the busy school courtyard.
A student asks Liang Ye if he truly has a handsome younger brother, as rumored.
Liang Ye remains silent, his cold and focused gaze revealing annoyance at the intrusive question.
His friend teases him about hiding a beauty and asks if he is feeling unwell. A pair of sneakers stops abruptly, signaling a moment of tension during the casual conversation. Liang Ye flatly denies having a younger brother, cutting off the conversation with a cold gaze.
Zhao Sui enters a quiet classroom where students are focused on their work at their desks.
Sitting down at his desk, the youth looks troubled and isolated from his whispering classmates.
Bullying begins as someone throws crumpled trash and a crushed can onto the youth's desk.
A group of students mocks the youth, reminding him that it is his cleaning turn. The lead bully mocks his illegitimate status and questions why the youth still dares glare.
Grabbing the youth's collar, the bully sneers that people like him are always the same.
The two students lock eyes in a tense standoff as the bully leans in threateningly.
Snapping from the constant harassment, the youth shouts back and prepares to fight the bully.
Zhao Sui loses control, pinning the bully to a desk and violently gripping his neck.
Flashbacks reveal his mother demanding he be a good child to stay by her side. The bully continues his taunts, mocking the youth's family for trying to climb social ranks.
He claims that the youth killed Liang Ye's mother, causing Zhao Sui to snap in rage.
Attacking with fury, the youth pins the boy and demands to know what he said.
The bully struggles to breathe as Zhao Sui's grip tightens around his neck in a rage. A teacher suddenly bursts into the room, ordering the students to stop fighting in class.
The youth is coldly reminded that he must still perform his classroom cleaning duties today.
Two figures stand close together in the classroom as the tension from the fight lingers.
A friend questions Liang Ye's thoughts on the teacher helping the youth after the incident.
The brown-haired student reveals that the fight occurred entirely because of Liang Ye's personal involvement.
Liang Ye dismisses the situation as a performance, reflecting on the youth's usual acting tricks.
He decides to play along with the act to see where the youth's performance leads. The scene shifts to the outdoor garbage disposal area of the school campus during midday. A close-up shows a student's hand placing a heavy trash bag into the bin. Two girls approach Zhao Sui, questioning if he is really the younger brother of Liang Ye. A close-up of the youth's purple eyes shows his silent contemplation of the girl's question.
Liang Ye reflects on how he wants to see the youth, despite their strained relationship.
The girl suggests that sending items is useless and he should deliver the message himself.
Walking with purpose, the youth's sneakers come to a halt as he reaches a decision. Standing before the pair, the youth asks exactly what they want him to hand over. Zhao Sui holds a pink love letter, his expression firm as he prepares for a delivery.
Outside the room, Zhao Sui hesitates to deliver a love letter he didn't even write.
Mustering his courage, the youth prepares to knock on the bedroom door and finish his past.
The door creaks open, revealing a glimpse into the private and quiet space of the room.
Walking in, Zhao Sui accidentally collides with Liang Ye, who is shirtless and recently showered. Startled by the contact, Zhao Sui notes the man's firm build while Liang Ye questions his actions. Flustered and blushing, the chibi youth stammers as he tries to explain his sudden intrusion.
A close-up highlights the pink love letter, the source of the youth's current anxiety and mission.
Trembling, Zhao Sui thrusts the pink envelope forward, shouting that the letter is for the man. Overcome with embarrassment, the chibi youth quickly turns and flees down the hallway after the delivery.
Clutching his face, Zhao Sui wonders where he accidentally touched the man during their awkward collision. Left alone, Liang Ye holds the towel and the pink letter, looking genuinely confused and surprised. The next day at school, the youth walks through the hallways, deep in his own thoughts.
Ignoring the stares of other students, Zhao Sui continues his walk with a calm, stoic expression.
Reaching his desk, the youth places his backpack down as he prepares for the day's classes.
A classmate asks if he's close to Liang Ye, mentioning the elder brother called the teacher.
Zhao Sui is surprised, wondering if his brother saw the incident and actually stepped in to help.
Touching his face, the youth contemplates if the man's assistance means he no longer hates him.
Surrounded by sparkles, the chibi youth's heart swells with hope that their relationship is finally improving.
On the court, a basketball swishes through the net as onlookers praise the perfect, beautiful shot.
Liang Ye's friend offers him a bottle of water, asking if he bought it himself today.
Drinking the water, Liang Ye denies buying it while his friend notes his brother provided the drink.
The friend teases him, noting that their relationship seems much better than the rumors originally suggested.
A sharp focus on Liang Ye's eye suggests he is carefully processing the friend's suggestive remarks.
Liang Ye spots Zhao Sui hiding behind a vending machine, watching the basketball game from a distance.
Inside the school, students discuss the upcoming practice session while a chalkboard shows complex mathematical equations.
A desk is cluttered with various boxes of medicine and band-aids gifted by many different girls. Students remark that Liang Ye's minor wound would heal alone despite the overwhelming number of band-aids.
Handing over the supplies, Liang Ye mentions his brother provided them, prompting his friend to act generous.
Tossing a red box into the trash, Liang Ye scoffs at the idea of his family being thoughtful.
His friend calls him heartless, suggesting Liang Yi introduce the pretty youth to him instead.
Liang Ye stares coldly, reminding his friend that Zhao Sui is a boy in a firm jam. The friend argues that gender is irrelevant for true affection, as Liang Ye reflects on the youth.
Recalling the youth's blushing face during the letter delivery, the man's mind lingers on the memory.
Looking conflicted, Liang Yi begins to doubt the youth's intentions and wonders if he would truly act.
Lost in thought, the man continues to struggle with his perception of the youth's confusing behavior.
A sudden sharp noise echoes as a hand slams against the wooden surface of the desk.
His friend asks why he's still there, reporting that Zhao Sui was just dragged to the rooftop. Looking visibly annoyed, Liang Ye demands to know why his friends keep bringing the youth up.
His companions note that his reaction to the youth's name is much stronger than for anyone else.
Standing up abruptly, the man commands his friends never to mention the youth to him ever again.
Declining to watch the rooftop confrontation, Liang Ye announces he is heading to the office instead.
High above the campus, a few students gather on the open rooftop under the bright midday sun.
Confronting the youth, a student demands to know if Xiao Yin sent him a private love letter. Looking bewildered, the chibi youth repeats the words, seemingly unaware of the specific girl's identity or letter.
A flashback shows the youth standing before two girls, finally receiving the pink envelope for his brother.
With a cold and dismissive expression, Zhao Sui acknowledges the girl's identity with a short, blunt remark.
Grabbing him by the collar, the bully expresses his hatred for the youth's arrogant and smug face.
Smiling mockingly, Zhao Sui dares the bully to hit him directly instead of making up pathetic excuses.
The bully rages, but Zhao Sui suddenly shifts, forcefully pinning the aggressor to the ground with ease. Standing over the fallen bully, Zhao Sui thanks him for choosing an isolated spot for their fight.
Zhao Sui watches the group, ignoring the surrounding chatter as the blue-eyed youth stands firm.
Returning to the mansion late at night, the youth cautiously enters the quiet modern grounds. Looking weary, the youth reflects on his late return while hiding his visible facial bruise. Liang Ye intercepts him on the stairs, coldly demanding to know where he is going.
A close-up emphasizes the youth's battered face as he stares silently at his elder brother.
Startled, Zhao Sui acknowledges the young master and wonders why he is still awake tonight. Tension hangs in the air as the two siblings stand in a cold, silent confrontation. Liang Ye demands to know the origin of the wound on the youth's bruised face.
Panicked that he forgot to cover the injury, the youth lies about falling off his bike.
Lifting his chin, Liang Ye mocks the youth's lying skills and calls him a bad kid.
The man continues to question the youth's honesty while labeling him a naughty kid for lying.
Recalling his mother's demands for obedience, the youth feels the weight of her past words.
Desperate, Zhao Sui claims it was just a conflict with classmates and promises not to repeat it.
Clinging to the man, the youth begs not to be driven away, promising absolute obedience. Looking up tearfully, the youth repeats his desperate vow to be very obedient to his brother.
A sharp close-up of Liang Ye's eye reveals his cold, calculating reaction to the boy's plea.
Liang Ye scoffs at the display, noting that the youth certainly knows how to act spoiled. Recalling a past interaction, the man questions if the youth is merely being dramatic for sympathy.
Holding a dark book, the man's hand tenses as he dwells on the current situation. Liang Ye reflects on the youth's name and his attempts to manipulate others for sympathy.
A memory of a smiling, pink-haired woman appears while the man remains isolated in the background.
Looming over him, Liang Ye commands the youth never to show that specific face to him again.
The youth offers a subtle, knowing smile, masking his inner turmoil during the tense exchange.
Intense focus fills the man's eyes as he scrutinizes the youth's expressions and hidden motives.
Looking at the woman's image, Liang Yi concludes that their faces look disturbingly alike.
His fist clenches in frustration as the past and present collide in his troubled mind.
Liang Ye questions if the youth truly intends to listen to everything he says from now on.
Looking conflicted, the youth struggles to maintain his composure under the man's piercing gaze.
Reflecting on the youth's possible feelings, Liang Ye finds the situation increasingly interesting and amusing.
Reaching out, the man's hand grazes the youth's neck near a visible mark of injury.
Lifting the youth's chin, the man considers if pretending to be kind will make him happy.
Zhao Sui warns that others will laugh more if they see the man in this state.
Liang Ye turns away, ordering the youth to follow him deeper into the mansion.
Surprised by the change in mood, the youth wonders why the man's attitude has improved.
The man suddenly grabs the youth's backpack, catching him off guard during their walk. Liang Ye tells the youth to enter his room to prove just how obedient he is.
The scene transitions to the interior of a luxurious, modern bedroom with elegant wooden accents.
Entering the room, the chibi youth is amazed by the massive collection of books on display.
Footsteps echo as the youth follows his brother deeper into the private, quiet space.
The two stand in the middle of the large bedroom as the atmosphere becomes heavily charged.
Liang Ye reaches out again, inspecting the bruises on the youth's face and neck with focus.
Flustered and overwhelmed, the chibi youth insists he is fine and tries to pull away.
Grabbing the youth's wrist, Liang Yi reveals a hidden, angry red burn mark on his skin.
Inspecting the additional injury, the man asks if there are any other wounds on his body.
Zhao Sui nervously tries to pull away, insisting he can take care of the injuries himself.
Clenching his hands, the youth is caught as the man deduces there are even more injuries.
Standing tall with his arms crossed, Liang Ye flatly orders the youth to take off his shirt.
Stunned by the sudden and bold command, the youth looks up with wide, shocked eyes.
Blushing furiously, the youth reacts with confusion and embarrassment at the man's unexpected order. Repeating the demand, Liang Ye stares down at the youth, waiting for him to comply.
Sui pulls his shirt away, insisting he can manage alone, but Liang Ye questions his competence. A close-up reveals Su's bruised torso as Liang Ye states that naughty, lying kids deserve punishment.
Liang Ye reminds Sui of his promise to obey while the youth hesitates with a nervous blush.
Liang Ye commands the youth to bite the fabric of his shirt as he prepares the medicine.
Su stares in shock, his face flushing deep red as he processes the man's intimate command.
The youth begins to pull his shirt up toward his mouth, his expression filled with apprehension.
Sui bites down on his shirt, exposing his heavily bruised chest and abdomen to his elder brother.
Liang Ye's finger applies cool medicine to a dark purple bruise on the youth's pale chest.
The man's hand moves lower, carefully spreading the medicine over the tender injuries on Sui's side.
Liang Ye asks why Sui is moving so much while the youth winces from the stinging contact.
As Liang Ye continues the application, he explains he is simply treating the wounds on the youth. Tears well in Sui's eyes as he struggles with the overwhelming physical and emotional intensity of the moment.
Biting the fabric tightly, Sui lets out a muffled cry as the treatment reaches a sensitive spot.
The chibi youth agrees to comply, though he looks slightly embarrassed and uncertain about the situation.
Liang Ye abruptly orders Sui to get out, leaving the youth confused by his sudden cold shift.
Sui watches his brother leave, questioning why the man's mood changed so quickly after their interaction.
A close-up reveals Liang Ye's hands tensing, suggesting he is hiding his own inner restraint.
The scene shifts to the mansion's grand foyer as Sui asks if the medicine was effective tonight.
Sui confirms it worked and wonders silently if Liang Ye will help treat him again tonight.
Liang Ye dismisses him with a short response, walking away and leaving the youth standing alone. Sui looks back in confusion, stunned by the man's return to a distant and cold demeanor.
The youth hesitates, trying to find words to bridge the growing gap between him and his brother.
Su feels hurt, realizing that once his visible wounds healed, his brother began ignoring him again.
A sharp close-up of Sui's eye reflects a sudden realization or a shift in his thinking.
Touching his neck, the youth notes that the wound is nearly gone, signaling their end of closeness.
The luxury mansion stands quiet and imposing under the dark, starry sky as the night deepens.
Sui descends the stairs and spots his brother, addressing him politely as the young master.
Liang Ye holds a cup, his expression calm as he notes the coincidence of their meeting.
Su asks if he is getting water while subtly revealing a new red mark on his neck.
Liang Ye notices the injury, but Sui claims he just carelessly bumped into something during his day.
Their feet come to a stop on the staircase, emphasizing the physical proximity and the tension. Looking up with a hopeful expression, Sui asks if his brother can help him deal with it. Liang Ye's mouth curves into a faint smile as he observes the youth's attempts at manipulation. The man looks down with an amused gaze, seemingly seeing through the youth's act. Liang Ye commands Sui to follow him to his room, agreeing to treat the new wound.